Chapter 389. My cultivation. What? What kind of formation is this? The immortals were shocked and screamed. Everyone's cultivation was regressing, and the immortal light around them was fluctuating violently. The entire Lingxiao Hall was in chaos. What kind of formation is this? Guang Qingzi's expression changed. He was shocked by the loss of immortal power in his body. He quickly retreated from the immortal-defying formation. His cultivation gradually returned to normal. The other Daluo Jingxian did the same. At this moment, in the Lingxiao Hall, the Jade Emperor's face was ashen, because he was in the center of the immortal-defying formation. The strange aura was pressuring him, causing his cultivation to drop at a terrifying rate. Even though the Jade Emperor was in the middle of the immortal-defying formation, he did not retreat. If he retreated, he would be defeated before the battle started. Good. The Jade Emperor sneered. Yi Xian East Emperor. No wonder you dare to reappear in the world. You have such a heaven-defying formation in your hands. The Jade Emperor paused for a moment. He continued coldly. Unfortunately, an external force is still an external force. Today you will die. Heavenly Dragon Slash. The Jade Emperor sealed the sky with his palm, and immortal light turned into a dragon. The Jade Emperor, who had not attacked for hundreds of thousands of years, finally showed his supreme power today. When he attacked with his palm, the wind and clouds changed. A golden heavenly blade appeared and slashed towards Yi Xian, with the power to destroy mountains and rivers. Heaven-slaying halberd. The darkness was boundless. A cold light appeared between Yi Xian's eyebrows. The ancient and dark halberd expanded in the wind, until it was held in Yi Xian's hand. Killing the heavens and earth. The halberd broke the sky. The darkness was boundless. The entire Lingxiao Hall dimmed. However, the two terrifying forces collided at this moment. Rumble. The Lingxiao Hall collapsed. When the darkness faded, the Lingxiao Hall no longer existed. The immortals had already retreated. However, in the boundless void, two golden and black figures were fighting. Haotian Divine Technique. The Jade Emperor formed a seal with both hands, and directly activated an immortal technique. He violently charged towards Yi Xian. However, under the cover of the immortal-defying formation, Daluo Jingxian's realm was very unstable. This also created an opportunity for Yi Xian to take advantage of. The 8 gates of life and death. Seek life through death. Yi Xian frantically activated the immortal-defying array diagram. The starlight that filled the sky was endless. A vortex door rumbled and spun above the Jade Emperor's head. It even released a terrifying immortal-defying chi, wanting to beat the Jade Emperor down to the mortal world. The inverse immortal formation diagram seized the fortune of heaven and earth, and had the power to reverse the universe. Yi Xian had been in seclusion for 300 years to refine the inverse immortal formation diagram. It was more than 10 times stronger than when he dealt with immortal Yu Ding. Damn it! The immortal-defying formation could reduce one's cultivation and turn immortals into mortals. This was not just for show. Although the Jade Emperor's cultivation was unfathomable, under the immortal-defying formation, he could not unleash his full strength. Kill! Yi Xian ferociously roared. When he struck out with his halberd, the destructive cold light tore through the barrier of time and space, and violently stabbed towards the Jade Emperor's glabella. Ding! Gold and iron clashed and sparks appeared. The Jade Emperor could not dodge. Yi Xian's halberd pierced the Jade Emperor's glabella. However, it did not pierce through the Jade Emperor's skull. Instead, sparks flew out. Dang! The Jade Emperor flipped his palm and hit the heaven-destroying halberd. Yi Xian also withdrew his halberd. The two of them were also forced to retreat. This scene shocked the immortals. No one expected that Yi Xian, who was only an all-heaven golden immortal, would obviously have the upper hand in this attack. What a powerful formation. If it could be perfected, it would be comparable to my clan's 12 heavenly fiends formation. Quafu sat cross-legged and looked at Yi Xian with an unfathomable light in his eyes. Although Quafu's voice was not loud, the immortals present heard it clearly. This caused their expressions to change. They did not expect Quafu to give Yi Xian such a high evaluation. The Jade Emperor can't kill him. Suddenly, Guang Qingzi spoke in a low voice. He then looked at Guanyin of the South Sea. Clearly, the two of them were one of the 12 ancient golden immortals. Yi Xian was already on the opposite side of the Chanism. Jade Emperor, let me help you. Suddenly, the demon-sweeping Emperor of Zhenwu laughed cruelly. His Daluo immortal light rolled out, and he stepped into the immortal-defying formation. He looked at Yi Xian with a cruel gaze. Emperor Zhenwu's arrival made Yi Xian frown, because he felt the immortal-defying formation fluctuating. Obviously, suppressing one Daluo Jinxian's cultivation was already pushing the immortal-defying formation to its limit. Emperor Zhenwu's arrival added a great burden to it. The immortal-defying formation was indeed unpredictable, but there was a limit. Yi Xian was only an all-heaven golden immortal. He could only control the immortal-defying formation to deal with one Daluo Jinxian. If he wanted to suppress two Daluo Jinxian, it was beyond his ability. As expected, although this formation is terrifying, it also needs the cultivation of the person controlling it. This guy is only an all-heaven golden immortal. He can't suppress two Daluo Jinxian at the same time. Quafu shook his head helplessly. He had already seen Yi Xian's flaw. Quafu was not the only one who noticed this. Guangqingzi and Guanyin of the South Sea naturally noticed this as well. They looked at each other and nodded slowly. When they took a step forward, they also appeared in the immortal-defying matrix. Buzz! The immortal light of the four Daluos shook the sky. The immortal-defying formation hummed and swayed. The starlight in the sky was constantly in disorder. This made Yi Xian's expression change drastically. He frantically circulated the undying immortal scripture and fixed the immortal-defying formation in the void, barely maintaining the immortal-defying formation. What a joke! What a joke! The four Daluo Jinxian are actually attacking the East Pole Emperor together. How shameless! Emperor Ziwei laughed coldly. When she stepped out, she appeared beside Yi Xian. The Daluo immortal light rippled out. Together with Yi Xian, they resisted the terrifying pressure released by the four Daluo Jinxian. Hearing Empress Myrtle Star's words, Guangqingzi and Guanyin's faces turned slightly red. However, they didn't refute her, because no matter what, Yi Xian had to die today. Even if the four of them surrounded him, they wouldn't hesitate. Ziwei, you're courting death. Emperor Zhenwu roared coldly. King Chujiang, you're the king of hell. If you can help my worthy younger brother overcome this calamity, I'll personally pay you a visit and offer you a ginseng fruit to repay the favor. Suddenly, Emperor Ziwei glanced at King Chujiang. Her voice was powerful, but it stunned the immortals and made King Chujiang's expression change slightly. Ginseng fruit, the spiritual root of heaven and earth, a myriad of spiritual herbs. It was the most precious treasure of the ancestor of earthly immortals, Immortal Zhen Yuan. Even if Daluo Jinxian consumed one, it could raise his cultivation by a level. He simply could not refuse. However, King Chujiang did not act impulsively, because he knew that the ginseng fruit was not easy to obtain. If he really helped Yi Xian, it would be equivalent to offending Chanism and the Jade Emperor. Chapter 390. King Chujiang. You've already been stuck at the second heaven of the all-heaven immortal realm for 300,000 years, right? Imperial Monarch Ziwei reminded with a low roar. Rumble. King Chujiang's expression turned ruthless when he heard Imperial Monarch Ziwei's words, and he directly soared into the sky and instantly appeared beside Imperial Monarch Ziwei. An extremely terrifying gloomy light suffused out from him. Obviously, he'd chosen to stand on Yi Xian's side because of the temptation of the ginseng fruit. King Chujiang, how dare you? The Jade Emperor's expression changed greatly as he loudly rebuked King Chujiang. Jade Emperor, you're the lord of the three realms. Logically speaking, this matter has nothing to do with the underworld. Today, I'm not representing the underworld. I'm only representing myself. I can only apologize. King Chujiang's expression was calm, but his attitude was resolute and decisive. What do immortals value the most? Cultivation, supreme cultivation. Even a Daluo Jinxian like King Chujiang of the underworld was no exception. Only supreme cultivation could allow him to gradually approach the position of a saint step by step. Although this hope was very slim, which Daluo Jinxian wasn't someone with firm willpower. Which one of them didn't have the heart to become a saint? At this moment, Yi Xian's expression was complicated. He'd never imagined that Imperial Monarch Ziwei would actually pay such a huge price for him when he'd just gotten acquainted with her. Actually, Yi Xian didn't know that Imperial Monarch Ziwei was a person who valued friendship greatly. Since he'd already recognized Yi Xian as his brother, he naturally couldn't leave him in the lurch. Moreover, everyone knew that he was the one who brought Yi Xian to the Celestial Court. No matter if it was for the sake of brotherhood or for his own face, he absolutely couldn't watch Yi Xian fall at the hands of the Jade Emperor and the others. It was also because of Imperial Monarch Ziwei's character that he had a wide range of friends in the three realms. He definitely wasn't someone an ordinary Daluo Jingxian could compare to. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. The Jade Emperor roared ferociously. He held the Celestial Emperor's sword in his hand and charged towards Yi Xian first. Die! Imperial Monarch Zhenwu spoke in a cruel manner. When the True Force sword was drawn, a myriad of sword lights whistled through the sky, and they targeted Yi Xian with the intention of killing him here. At the same time, Guanyin of the South Sea flipped the jade bottle upside down. The glazed Buddhist light poured out. It seemed benevolent and peaceful, but it was capable of destroying one's soul and body. Sky-flipping seal, shattering mountains and rivers, shattering heaven and earth. The ancient spiritual treasure heaven-flipping seal's might was boundless. In the hands of Master Guangqingzi, it displayed its divine might, and also fell towards Yi Xian. Dense starry night. Yama suppresses the heavens. Emperor Ziwei and King Chujiang made their moves and charged towards the four Daluo Jingxian. Meanwhile, Yi Xian activated the Immortal Defying Formation diagram violently and continuously cut down the four Golden Immortals' cultivation base. He even charged towards the Jade Emperor with his heaven-destroying halberd. Kill! With the Defying Immortal Formation suppressing the four Daluo Jingxian, Yi Xian and the other two's battle prowess skyrocketed, and the seven terrifying characters clashed together. Bang! 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 Great Immortal Techniques, Daluo Immortal Light, Defying Gods and Slaying Immortals, Tongtian. The terrifying power released by the seven of them was too overwhelming, causing the Immortals to flee pathetically. Some of the weaker Immortals who couldn't dodge in time were reduced to ashes. Heaven Protection Formation. Suddenly, a loud and clear female voice rang out. The Queen Mother of the West flew over on a cloud from the depths of the Jade Lake. Although she was a woman, she was also one of the masters of the Celestial Court. She immediately activated the Heaven-Protecting Grand Formation to prevent the Celestial Court from being destroyed by the battle between the seven. Although the Queen Mother of the West appeared, she didn't attack Yi Xian. Obviously, Yi Xian had ruined the Jade Emperor's plan. The Queen Mother of the West still had a trace of gratitude towards Yi Xian in her heart. She just watched coldly as the Jade Emperor crazily attacked Yi Xian. Little Zhenwu, come. I'll destroy your physical body today and send you into the 6 paths of reincarnation. Emperor Ziwei slashed out with her sword, causing the endless void to shatter, and Emperor Zhenwu to dodge pathetically. Guanyin, I'm sorry to offend you, King Chujiang said coldly. The sky was filled with dark light, and he directly clashed with Guanyin of the South Sea. Clang! 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 The heaven-destroying halberd was the #1 killing weapon of all time. It contained a strange and unpredictable power. Even the Jade Emperor didn't dare to let the heaven-destroying halberd invade his body. When Yi Xian stabbed his glabella, he seemed to be unharmed, but his primordial spirit was actually shaken. He almost died when Yi Xian pierced his glabella. Heavenly Dao Dragon Art Murderous Light. Although Yi Xian was an overarching Heaven Golden Immortal, his combat strength in the Immortal Defying Formation was not weaker than Daluo Jingxian. He was also evenly matched with the Jade Emperor. Fellow Taoist Guangqing, quickly lend the Jade Emperor a hand. Let's kill Yi Xian together. The formation in his hand will naturally disintegrate. At that moment, only Guangqing had no opponent. This made Emperor Zhenwu remind Guangqing loudly. Go! Without needing Emperor Zhenwu's reminder, Guangqing cast an immortal spell. The sky-turning seal covered the sky and smashed down on Yi Xian with an extremely terrifying zenith heaven immortal light. Clang! Yi Xian's face was ferocious. He punched the Jade Emperor back, and with a backhand swing, he blasted the sky-turning seal away. However, Yi Xian's face turned slightly pale, and a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. No, I'm still too weak. Yi Xian roared in his heart. With just one strike, Yi Xian could feel that Guangqing's cultivation was too terrifying. If he were to fight against this person alone, he would be in an invincible position. However, when he fought with the Jade Emperor earlier, he had already consumed too much of his cultivation. After all, external forces were external forces. Only one's own cultivation was the foundation. How could Yi Xian not understand this principle? If he was Daluo Jingxian now, and had the immortal defying formation in his hand, these 4 Daluo Jingxian would definitely be suppressed by him. However, the fact was that he was only an overarching heaven golden immortal. To be able to fight 4 Daluo Jingxian to this extent was already his limit. If Emperor Ziwei and King Chujiang had not blocked 2 people for him, facing the siege of 4 Daluo Jingxian, even with the immortal defying formation in his hand, it could be said that he was doomed. Although Yi Xian secretly hated his weak cultivation, he did not know that in the eyes of the immortals, he was simply an evildoer of all ages. This made the immortals feel a great sense of reverence in their hearts. At the beginning of the world, all living things were born. They had never heard of an overarching heaven golden immortal being able to fight so fiercely with the Daluo Jingxian to this extent. This was a battle that was basically a battle of a major realm. It was simply a fantasy. Fighting across a major realm was not a rare thing in the 3 realms. However, Daluo Jingxian was a watershed. Stepping into the Daluo Jingxian symbolized mastery of the laws of heaven and earth. It was also beyond the 3 realms, and not within the 5 elements. The difference in cultivation was simply a chasm between heaven and earth. However, what did the immortals see today? The East Pole Emperor was merely an overarching heaven golden immortal. Although he had the immortal defying formation in his hand, he was facing 2 Daluo Jingxian head-on. This simply shocked the immortals to the extreme. At this moment, the most worried person was the goddess of moon frost. She bit her lips slightly as she watched Yi Xian fight the 2 Daluo Jingxian. She even saw the blood at the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. A trace of worry flashed across her eyes. Brother Quafu, the goddess of moon frost's expression was miserable. She looked at Quafu pleadingly, because she knew that Quafu's combat strength was heaven-defying. Only he could help Yi Xian. Chapter 391. Xiao Yi, you are the goddess of the sorcerer tribe. You should know that the sorcerer tribe was wiped out in the Great War of the sorcerer tribe. We are no longer the masters of this world. This is a conflict between the great orthodoxies. I can't help you. Quafu didn't dare to look into Fairy Guanghan's eyes. He was afraid that he wouldn't have the heart to reject her, so he could only speak coldly. The most important thing was that Quafu had his own selfish motives. Fairy Guanghan was the goddess of the sorcerer tribe, but she fell in love with the human emperor. He couldn't tolerate this at all. He hoped that Yi Xian would die in the void. This would give his brother De Yi a chance. Therefore, Quafu didn't want to help Yi Xian. If Fairy Guanghan wasn't here, he might have helped the Jade Emperor kill Yi Xian. Although Quafu was surprised by Yi Xian's combat power and admired him, it didn't mean that he would help Yi Xian. Fairy Guanghan's expression turned bitter at Quafu's rejection, but she didn't say anything. She knew that she was forcing him. Die! Guangqingzi roared. The sky-turning seal pressed down horribly. The Jade Emperor slashed with his sword. The 2 Daluo Jingxian joined forces, and finally tilted the battlefield. Bang! Yi Xian's figure flew backwards as he spat out a mouthful of blood. This caused Empress Myrtle Star's expression to greatly change. She blasted Emperor Zhanwu back with a single sword strike, and was about to charge towards Yi Xian. Your opponent is me. You're dreaming if you want to save his life. Emperor Zhanwu laughed ferociously. When he took a step forward, he blocked Emperor Ziwei's path. Yi Xian. Fairy Guanghan's beautiful face was pale and bloodless. She shot toward Yi Xian. However, before she could reach Yi Xian, the Jade Emperor had already blocked her. Chang'e, even if we can never have you, we must kill him today. As the 2 of them faced off, Master Guangqingzi wielded the sky-turning seal, and activated his supreme cultivation base. He violently charged towards Yi Xian, forcing Yi Xian to retreat again and again. His immortal energy was depleted at an even faster rate. However, no one noticed that even though Yi Xian showed signs of defeat, and was even violently killed by Guangqingzi, he wasn't in any danger of life or death from the beginning to the end. Instead, he gradually approached Empress Myrtlestar and Emperor Zhenwu. Bang! The cataclysmic seal smashed into Yi Xian's chest, shattering Yi Xian's body. He spat out a mouthful of blood, but no one saw the strange smile on his face. The immortal light shattered, and Yi Xian, who was covered in blood, was sent flying towards Imperial Emperor Zhenwu. This made Imperial Emperor Zhenwu extremely happy. Die! Faced with such a good opportunity, Imperial Emperor Zhenwu savagely laughed. The origin immortal light surged out, as the true martial sword domineeringly pierced towards Yi Xian's heart. Careful! Emperor Ziwei paled at this sight. She wanted to stop Imperial Emperor Zhenwu, but it was a little too late. Little brat Zhenwu die first. Suddenly, before the true martial sword could pierce Yi Xian's heart, a sinister roar exploded through the world. Yi Xian's flying body suddenly froze, and a cruel and vicious smile appeared in Imperial Emperor Zhenwu's eyes. Not good. Imperial Emperor Zhenwu's heart trembled at the sight of Yi Xian's expression, and the shadow of death enveloped his body. He frantically activated the origin immortal light to retreat, but Yi Xian was already standing right next to him. Terrifying black light condensed in Yi Xian's palms. 9 Shaman Soul Devouring Technique. Shaman light covered the sky while the soul trembled. Yi Xian laughed viciously, and it caused the world to tremble violently. An extremely strange and unfathomable aura erupted from him, and it even transformed into 9 chains of shaman light that instantly coiled around Imperial Emperor Zhenwu. In an instant, Imperial Emperor Zhenwu's carelessness had caused him to be bound like a dumpling before the origin immortal light could even rise from him. Die! A speck of cold light and a vicious aura surged through Tongtian. It seemed to shatter the world and throw the river of time into chaos. The boundless and dark aura of deathly stillness bloomed around Yi Xian, while the Heaven Exalt halberd seethed with surging black light, and it instantly pierced through the center of Imperial Emperor Zhenwu's forehead. From the moment Yi Xian suffered Master Guangqing's attack, until he pierced through Imperial Emperor Zhenwu's sea of consciousness, all of this was within Yi Xian's calculations, and no one had been able to react at all. On the other hand, Imperial Emperor Zhenwu was careless, and didn't even have the time to utilize an immortal technique. In the end, he suffered a heavy injury from Yi Xian's lethal attack. Yi Xian's thoughts were very simple. It was impossible for him to be a match for 4 Daluo Jingxian. Even if he had the assistance of Imperial Monarch Ziwei and Imperial Monarch Chu Jiang, he would still suffer a crushing defeat in the end. If he wanted to overcome this predicament, then he had to kill one of the Daluo Jingxian. In this way, he, Imperial Monarch Ziwei, and King Chu Jiang would be able to fight evenly against the Jade Emperor and the others. Imperial Monarch Zhenwu's cultivation was the weakest amongst the 4 Daluo Jingxian, so he'd naturally been targeted by Yi Xian since the beginning. As the saying goes, pick the soft persimmon. So Imperial Monarch Zhenwu was naturally the soft persimmon amongst the 4 of them. Die! Yi Xian didn't waste his breath at all. While everyone was shocked and stunned, he activated the Immortal Defying Formation diagram and enveloped Imperial Monarch Zhenwu's body with all the power of the Immortal Defying Formation diagram, instantly knocking him down to the level of Daluo Jingxian. Bang! 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 Fist light illuminated the sky, and the halberd smashed down. Imperial Monarch Zhenwu's head shattered, and he was already half dead. Moreover, he was suppressed by the Immortal Defying Formation diagram. At this moment, his cultivation was only at the overarching Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. How could he avoid the killing intent that Yi Xian had been planning for a long time? Jade Emperor, save me! Bang! Imperial Monarch Zhenwu's body collapsed, and his origin spirit appeared in the void. He even cried out loudly for help from the Jade Emperor, and his chaotic origin spirit even trembled in the void. 9 Shaman Soul Refinement. 9 chains of shaman light instantly wrapped around Imperial Monarch Zhenwu's origin spirit, and he was directly sucked into Yi Xian's palm. All of this happened in a flash. When everyone recovered from their shock, Imperial Monarch Zhen Wu's origin spirit had already been restrained by Yi Xian. Silence, silence, extreme silence. When this scene appeared in the eyes of the immortals, an extremely horrified emotion grew in the hearts of every immortal. What did they see? Imperial Monarch Zhen Wu's body collapsed, and his origin spirit fell into the hands of the East Pole Emperor. He would probably be crushed by the East Pole Emperor in the next moment. Imperial Monarch Zhen Wu, a dignified Daluo Jingxian, and one of the 4 great imperial monarchs of the Celestial Court, had actually fallen into such a state today. This was simply shocking. Above the sky, in the void, Yi Xian smiled sinisterly as he looked around the world. He was holding Imperial Monarch Zhen Wu's origin spirit with one hand, causing one's soul to tremble at a glance. An extreme sense of terror rose in one's heart. The East Pole Emperor is indeed a monster. He's only an overarching heaven golden immortal, but he can kill Imperial Monarch Zhen Wu. If he's allowed to advance to the golden immortal realm, I'm afraid that no one will be able to stop him unless a saint appears. Venus Taibai spoke with a trembling voice, and her face turned ghastly pale. When the immortals heard Venus Taibai's words, a wisp of horror rose in their eyes. At the same time, Imperial Monarch Ziwei laughed loudly and directly arrived before Yi Xian. On the other hand, King Chujiang looked deeply at Yi Xian with a complicated expression, and a wisp of surprise flashed through his eyes. Chapter 392. The Eastern Emperor must not be offended. It was as if a voice was echoing in King Chujiang's mind, and the intention of befriending Yi Xian arose in his heart. If King Chujiang had helped Yi Xian because of the ginseng fruit that Emperor Ziwei had promised, then his thoughts had quietly changed now. Just like Taibai Jingxing had said, Yi Xian was only an all-heaven golden immortal, yet he was already able to fight against the great Luo realm. Just this kind of monstrous talent was unheard of. And if Yi Xian stepped into the great Luo realm, he wouldn't dare say that he was invincible in this realm, but he would definitely be an existence that revered as an ancestor. Today, he helped Yi Xian, which was equivalent to forming good karma with Yi Xian. This would bring him unimaginable benefits. At this moment, Guang Qingzi's face was gloomy, Nanhai Guang frowned, and the Jade Emperor's face was ashen. The 3 of them had extremely ugly expressions, but there was a hint of extreme fear in their eyes when they looked at Yi Xian. This kid must not be allowed to live. If they did not kill Yi Xian today, when Yi Xian advanced into the golden immortal realm in the future, he would definitely look for them to settle today's grudge. When they thought of this scene, the 3 of them could not help but shiver. Jade Emperor, save me. Emperor Zhen Wu had never felt the pressure of death before. But now that his body had collapsed and his soul had fallen into Yi Xian's hands, he truly felt the danger of death. This also made him tremble, and asked the Jade Emperor for help. Yi Xian, let go of Emperor Zhen Wu's soul. The Jade Emperor's face was ashen. He was trying his best to suppress his anger, but his gaze towards Yi Xian was filled with extremely vicious killing intent. Ha! The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled into a vicious and strange smile. He looked at the Jade Emperor as if he was looking at an idiot and said, "You're really ignorant. Do you think I'll let go of his soul? Yi Xian, I have to warn you. Zhen Wu is the Emperor of the Celestial Court, and he's also Dao Tianzuan's in-name disciple. If you dare to destroy his soul, there will be no place for you in the 3 realms." The Jade Emperor said sternly, "A worthy younger brother, Zhen Wu can't kill him." Ziwei frowned slightly, and she reminded Yi Xian in a low voice. Just as the Jade Emperor had said, Emperor Zhen Wu was the saint Lao Tzu's in-name disciple. If he killed Wu, there would be unimaginable consequences. East Emperor, I've offended you in the past, and I'll ask for your forgiveness. As long as you let go of my soul, the enmity between us will be forgotten. Emperor Zhen Wu spoke humbly, and he hoped that Yi Xian could see the situation clearly. Fellow Taoist East Emperor, his body has already collapsed, and he's no longer a threat to us. It's best that you let go of his soul. King Chujiang advised in a timely manner. Let him go. Yi Xian smiled. He really smiled. However, his smile was strange and ghastly. This stunned all the spectators while a bad feeling arose in their hearts. As long as it's my Yi Xian's enemy, the only outcome is death. There has never been an exception to this. Yi Xian said sinisterly as a blood-colored immortal light flashed through his eyes. Stop! The Jade Emperor's expression changed drastically, and he slammed his palm towards Yi Xian. But how could he save Emperor Zhenwu? Die! No! Under the horrified gazes of the immortals and Empress Myrtlestar's dumbfounded gaze, Yi Xian's expression was ghastly and terrifying as he directly crushed Emperor Zhenwu's essence spirit in his hand. At the last moment before his soul dispersed, Emperor Zhenwu let out a miserable and unwilling shrill cry. Never had he imagined that Yi Xian would actually be so audacious to actually crush his soul. Bang! His soul exploded into bits of golden light, while violent gales blew over and dispersed the golden light from his soul. From this moment onwards, Emperor Zhenwu ceased to exist in the 3 dimensions. Rumble! It rained heavily while black clouds covered the sky. The fall of a Daluo Jingxian caused a phenomenon in the heavens and the earth. It was like the heavens were wailing, and the rain that fell from the sky seemed like the tears of the heavens. He's dead? Emperor Zhenwu has perished. He's a Daluo Jingxian. The immortals were stunned as they muttered. However, they had witnessed the fall of Emperor Zhenwu with their own eyes, which made them feel as if they had fallen into a dream. However, their bodies were trembling unconsciously, and they looked at Yi Xian with a hint of horror and fear. At this moment, the Jade Emperor clenched his fists tightly, and the veins on his fists bulged. His handsome face was even more distorted, and an extremely violent aura surrounded him. Dead? Emperor Zhenwu was actually dead? The Jade Emperor wasn't angry about Emperor Zhenwu's death, but about Yi Xian's lawlessness. Emperor Zhenwu was Lao Tzu's in-name disciple. As the Jade Emperor, he had an unshirkable responsibility. Today he wanted to kill Yi Xian. Emperor Zhenwu had helped him, but he was killed by Yi Xian. How could he explain this to Lao Tzu? The world was silent, and everything was silent. After dozens of breaths, the violent emotions around the Jade Emperor gradually calmed down. When he opened and closed his eyes, they were as deep as an ancient pool. He seemed to be undergoing an inexplicable change, but a terrifying and majestic aura slowly bloomed around him. Buzz! The void rippled, and the wind and clouds in the world changed. The roar of a dragon echoed in the 33 layers of the celestial court. Amidst the billions of golden lights, a 30,000-meter-long golden seal appeared and spanned between heaven and earth. The square dragon seal? Emperor Ziwei's expression changed drastically. He shouted at Yi Xian, "A worthy younger brother, quickly leave the celestial court." "Emperor, leave quickly." Zhao Gongming's face was pale as he shouted from afar. Despair rose in his eyes. The square dragon seal was the symbol of the celestial emperor. It contained the fate of the celestial court and had incredible power. It was also the most precious treasure of the celestial court. There was an old legend. Back then, the master of the ancient celestial court, Di Jun, used the square dragon seal to fight against the ancestral shaman. He used the square dragon seal to crack the ancestral shaman's body. From this legend, one could tell how terrifying the square dragon seal was. Ziwei King Chujiang, I'll give the 2 of you one last chance. If you don't leave now, don't blame me for not caring about our old friendship. The Jade Emperor's eyes turned, and the square dragon seal buzzed between heaven and earth. Although the inverse celestial formation diagram was terrifying, it faintly showed signs of defeat when facing the most precious treasure of heaven and earth like the square dragon seal. It wasn't that the inverse celestial formation diagram wasn't strong, but Yi Xian's cultivation wasn't enough. If he was the Daluo Jingxian, he would be able to fight against the Jade Emperor with the square dragon seal. A worthy younger brother, King Chujiang, and I will stop him. Quickly descend to the lower realm. When you step into the Daluo Jingxian, you can settle today's karma. Emperor Ziwei said solemnly, because he knew how terrifying the Jade Emperor with the square dragon seal was. Attack. Without waiting for Yi Xian's reply, Emperor Ziwei took out the Ziwei Immortal Sword, and even asked King Chujiang to use the ghost technique to attack the Jade Emperor together, creating a chance for Yi Xian to escape. Suppress. The square dragon seal suppressed heaven and earth. Before Emperor Ziwei and King Chujiang arrived in front of the Jade Emperor, the space and time in this area stopped. It instantly suppressed Emperor Ziwei and King Chujiang in the void, making them unable to move at all. A worthy younger brother, leave quickly! Emperor Ziwei roared after being suppressed by the square dragon seal. There was a hint of anxiety in his eyes because the Jade Emperor with the square dragon seal was too terrifying. The two of them didn't even have the chance to attack. He can't leave. Under the suppression of the square dragon seal, the 33 layers of the celestial court were like an iron bucket. No one could escape from the celestial court. At this moment, Yi Xian's face was gloomy. The inverse celestial formation diagram floated above his head, isolating him and blocking the terrifying power released by the square dragon seal. Time. He needed time. Yi Xian knew that what he lacked the most was time. It wasn't that he didn't have the means to resist the Jade Emperor. If he could step into the Zenith Heaven realm, he wouldn't be afraid even if the Jade Emperor had the square dragon seal. Chapter 393. However, cultivation was not something that could be achieved overnight. Every Daluo Jingxian had cultivated for millions of years. Yi Xian had reached the golden immortal realm in just a little over 1,000 years. This was already an unprecedented miracle. In fact, just as Emperor Ziwei had said, he should have stepped into the Daluo Jingxian. Only then would he have the means to compete with the Jade Emperor. However, the Moon Fairy was his woman. Even if he had not stepped into the Daluo realm, he could only risk his life to take the Moon Fairy away. This was also Yi Xian's dignity. However, Yi Xian did not expect that not only was the Jade Emperor's cultivation unfathomable, but the four-sided dragon seal could also suppress the inverse immortal formation diagram. Although this was related to his cultivation, the situation he was facing now was not optimistic. Heavenly Demon Ingress. The door to the extraterritorial devil realm opened. Under Yi Xian's ferocious roar, he activated the Forbidden Heaven technique again. An ancient demonic shadow walked out of the door and slowly merged with Yi Xian, causing his aura to skyrocket. Yi Xian's primordial spirit had already merged with the heavenly demon's power. This time, using the Forbidden Heaven technique would naturally not cause the heavenly demon to counterattack. However, it could only temporarily raise him to the first firmament of the Daluo realm. He could barely activate the inverse immortal formation diagram to fight the Jade Emperor. Kill. It wasn't that Yi Xian didn't understand this principle. Moreover, the time for the heavenly demon to enter his body was only 2 hours. After 2 hours, he would fall back to the all-heaven golden immortal realm. Forbidden Heaven technique? The Jade Emperor sneered and said, "Do you think I'm that old man you ding? Do you think you can defeat me by using this technique?" Die. The 4 dragon seals descended, bringing with them a might that could suppress all living things as they pressed down towards Yi Xian. Inverse. The inverse immortal formation diagram glowed. Under the infusion of Yi Xian's heavenly demon's power, it shot into the sky and caused the 2 spiritual treasures to clash in the void. Bang bang bang. At the same time, the Jade Emperor was no longer suppressed by the immortal defying formation. His terrifying cultivation was gradually revealed. Even though Yi Xian's cultivation had increased by a large realm because of the heavenly demon's power, he did not take it seriously. A great battle was unavoidable, and the two of them fought against each other. Bang! Yi Xian's fist smashed onto the Jade Emperor's chest, but his left shoulder suffered a heavy blow from the Jade Emperor, causing Yi Xian's face to pale. A trace of blood slowly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. On the other hand, the Jade Emperor's face turned slightly pale after being hit by Yi Xian's attack. Clearly, the heavenly demon's power was strange and unpredictable, and it made him uncomfortable. However, he still had the upper hand in this confrontation. Rumble. The 4 directions dragon seal suppressed the world, mountains and rivers. It was also the supreme treasure of the celestial court. The inverse immortal formation diagram was unpredictable, and starlight fell from the sky, releasing a terrifying killing intent. A ray of Daluo immortal light shattered the world, and a dazzling fist radiance shattered the void like a meteor. Yi Xian and the Jade Emperor fought fiercely to the extreme, and the 33rd celestial court was filled with the two of them fighting fiercely. If not for the celestial protection formation, the shockwaves from their battle would have destroyed the 33rd celestial court. Haotian divine technique. The heavenly Tao draconic aura howled, and the dragon's roar shook the 9 heavens. The Jade Emperor's cultivation rose steadily, and he truly displayed his terrifying power as the master of the 3 realms. Boundless darkness. The heaven-slaying halberd swung in the void, and the boundless darkness swept in all directions. Yi Xian struck the Jade Emperor with his halberd, and the 33rd celestial court shook violently. The void in all directions faintly cracked, as if it would collapse at any time. The battle continued, and blood splattered everywhere. The two of them had already gone mad, and the only thought in their minds was to kill each other. However, the heavenly demon power in Yi Xian's body was gradually fading away, and his own aura was becoming weaker and weaker. He was already showing signs of defeat. On the other hand, the Jade Emperor's immortal light was vast, and his aura was becoming more and more terrifying. In the end, external forces were only external forces. Moreover, the difference in cultivation between the two of them was too great. Although the immortal defying diagram had cancelled out the 4 directions dragon seal, under his true cultivation, Yi Xian wasn't a match for the Jade Emperor. What a pity that such a genius is going to fall here today. If he could step into the Daluo realm, his future would be limitless. What a pity, what a pity. Quafu lamented. He did not need to continue watching to know that Yi Xian's final outcome was only death. Although Quafu's voice was not loud, it was heard by the immortals. This made them sigh helplessly, knowing that Quafu was right. Yi Xian was most likely going to die today. Quafu, listen to my order. Suddenly a cold voice rang out, startling Quafu. The aura around him fluctuated greatly, and he looked at the fairy of Guanghan with a complicated expression. It was a black token that was not made of gold, iron or jade. It was unknown what material it was made of, but this black token was engraved with flowers, birds, fish, insects, mountains, and the earth. One of the characters, Wu, was even emitting an ancient aura. At this moment, the fairy of Guanghan's face was cold, and she was biting her lips. She held the black token and looked at Quafu, but there was a trace of bitterness in her eyes. Ancestral witch token? Quafu said word by word, and his face became extremely red. He said, Xiao Yi, you actually used the ancestral witch token for him? Quafu, as the goddess of the witch tribe, I order you to save Yi Xian. A faint light bloomed around the fairy of Guanghan. Her face was cold, and her voice was powerful, giving people a sense of sacredness. At this moment, Quafu's face was gloomy, and his mountain-like body was trembling slightly. He had never thought that the fairy of Guanghan would use her ancestral witch token for Yi Xian. This was simply unbearable. Xiao Yi, do you know that the ancestral witch token can only be used once in a lifetime? It can be used to mobilize all the tribesmen of the witch tribe. Today you used it for a man of the human tribe. This has violated the taboo of the witch tribe. Even if I can obey you, your position as the goddess will not be guaranteed, and you will be punished according to the tribe rules. Quafu growled, and his eyes were a little red. As long as he can live, nothing else matters, the fairy of Guanghan said coldly. Okay. Quafu suddenly stood up, and his eyes were like erupting volcanoes. He said, Xiao Yi, since you took out the ancestral witch token, I can help you once. But no matter whether Yi Xian can survive today or not, you are no longer the goddess of the witch tribe. You have to go back to the witch tribe with me and apologize to the ancestral witch. From now on, you are not allowed to set foot in the 3 realms. I promise you. The princess of Guanghan had already known this would be the result. She did not hesitate at all, and her voice was cold and determined. Why are you so stupid? Looking at the fairy of Guanghan's cold and determined face, Quafu's body trembled, and his voice was extremely bitter. Brother Quafu. The fairy of Guanghan did not dare to look into Quafu's eyes. She could only beg Quafu bitterly. Kill. All the bitterness and anger made Quafu finally make a move. He roared to the sky and stepped out. The void shattered, and his mountain-like body violently attacked the Jade Emperor. Chapter 394. Quafu was an ancient great sorcerer, and his body was the most horrible spirit treasure. Even the almighty immortals of the great all-embracing heaven did not dare to touch him directly. Bang! The Jade Emperor panicked and retreated thousands of miles. The immortal light of the great all-embracing heaven around him was collapsing, which proved how terrifying Quafu's attack was. Quafu, do you want to start a war between the Celestial Court and the Sorcerer Tribe? The Jade Emperor didn't feel good after being hit by Quafu's overbearing attack. If he didn't have the square dragon seal and was connected to the Celestial Court, he would have been seriously injured. The Celestial Court is nothing but an ant in front of the Sorcerer Tribe. Let's fight. The great ancient sorcerers were capable of fighting in the world. This was not just a saying, and they had never been afraid of any orthodoxies or forces. The 12 ancestors of sorcerers had even dared to challenge the sages in the past. This fully illustrated the lawless nature of the Sorcerer Tribe. Quafu was too terrifying. Every time he waved his hand, the luminous starry sky cracked open. Stars and meteorites fell from the sky and bombarded the Jade Emperor. Yi Xian, go to the mortal world. When Quafu and the Jade Emperor fought, Yi Xian was given a chance to breathe. The goddess of Moon Palace appeared beside Yi Xian and advised him anxiously, "Come with me." Suddenly, Yi Xian grabbed onto Fairy Guanghan's jade-like hand, but the mournful unwillingness in his eyes was extremely dense. In the end, he was defeated. He wasn't a match for the Jade Emperor, but in the end, he still had to use Quafu to block the Jade Emperor for him. I'm sorry. I really can't go with you." The goddess of Moon Palace smiled bitterly. She finally pushed Yi Xian away, because she knew that if she really chose to leave with Yi Xian, not only the Jade Emperor, but also the Sorcerer Tribe wouldn't let Yi Xian go. Moreover, she took out the witch token and asked Quafu to save Yi Xian, which violated the taboo of the Sorcerer Tribe. She had to return to the Sorcerer Tribe to ask for forgiveness. If she didn't do so, Yi Xian would be implicated. Why? Yi Xian roared unwillingly. He clenched his teeth so hard that they almost broke. Was it because he was too weak? Yi Xian, I believe in you. I believe that you can reach the zenith heaven, and even the sage-to-be. You can even become a supreme saint in the world. But today you must escape and survive. Only then can we meet again. The goddess of Moon Palace stroked Yi Xian's cheek, tears flowing down her cheeks. Looking at the tears on the goddess of Moon Palace's face, Yi Xian clenched his fists. His eyes were red. He had never felt so powerless and defeated. He thought that he could take the goddess of Moon Palace away. He thought that he could resist the Jade Emperor with the inverse immortal formation. But the reality told him that it was all a joke. Guangchengzi kill him. The Jade Emperor and Quafu were fighting in the sky. However, the two of them were evenly matched and neither of them could do anything to the other. This also caused the Jade Emperor to roar at Guangchengzi and the Southern Sea Guanyin. At this moment, only the two of them could kill Yi Xian. Guangchengzi and Guanyin of the South Sea had already planned to do so even without the Jade Emperor's reminder. They locked onto Yi Xian's aura. Their zenith heaven immortal light bloomed faintly, ready to attack Yi Xian at any time. Buzz! The void swayed and rippled. A bow and an arrow appeared in the void. This made Guangchengzi and Guanyin of the South Sea pale. Their zenith heaven immortal light became somewhat chaotic. How could they not see that this bow and arrow were the ancient divine artifacts that he had used to kill the 9 golden crows? Chang'e, do you know why I've never used this bow and arrow even when I'm in danger? In the air, Yi Xian gave a mournful smile as he handed the bow and arrow to the fairy of Guanghan. This caused the fairy of Guanghan to lower her eyes. She silently took the bow and arrow and said with a bitter voice, "Because this belongs to Dai. You don't want to use his divine artifact to protect your life." Yi Xian nodded slowly. Clearly, the goddess of Moon Palace had said what he wanted to say. He stroked the goddess of Moon Palace's hair, deeply imprinting her face in his mind. Then he silently turned to Guangchengzi and Guanyin of the South Sea. His sad voice rang out at this moment. "You all want to kill me? Then let me see if you have the ability to do so." Looking at Yi Xian's lonely back, the goddess of Moon Palace had a very bad feeling. This also made her expression change. She said, "Yi Xian, what are you doing?" Unfortunately, Yi Xian did not reply to the goddess of Moon Palace. Yi Xian's eyes were gray and lifeless. The heaven-destroying halberd shone above his head. Under the horrified gazes of the immortals, the heaven-destroying halberd pierced Yi Xian's head and directly merged with Yi Xian's body. Beautiful blood dyed every inch of Yi Xian's skin red. There was no aura that shook the heavens and the earth, nor was there an extremely terrifying immortal light. There was only a wisp of an aura that caused everything to wither that bloomed around Yi Xian. Forbidden secret technique, man and halberd unity. This was a terrifying technique that killed both oneself and the heaven-destroying halberd. By combining oneself with the heaven-destroying halberd, one could also channel the power of the heaven-destroying halberd. Yi Xian had never cultivated this technique. However, he had no other choice but to use it. Even though he didn't know what would happen to him in the end, this was his final trump card. Kill him. Guang Qingzi's heart turned cold. He controlled the cataclysmic seal and smashed it towards Yi Xian. The southern sea Guanyin jade vase turned upside down and poured out a glazed Buddhist light to drown Yi Xian. However, an extremely shocking scene appeared. When the heaven-flipping seal smashed onto Yi Xian's body, it didn't cause the slightest ripple. The Buddha light that poured down even turned into specks of golden light and disappeared without a trace. When Yi Xian and the heavenly punishing halberd merged into one, he was the heavenly punishing halberd, and the heavenly punishing halberd was him. Even a great Luo golden immortal wouldn't be able to harm him in the slightest. Everything withered, and the darkness was boundless. Yi Xian's black hair withered. When his eyes opened and closed, it was as if the stars in the sky were exploding in his eyes. This caused the world to become extremely distorted. No one knew what happened to Yi Xian's body. However, a deathly aura reverberated in the 33rd celestial court. Even the dragon seal trembled slightly, as if afraid of this aura. Bang bang! With a punch, the cataclysmic seal was destroyed. Guang Qingzi flew backwards with blood spurting out of his mouth. With a backhand slap, he shattered the southern sea Guanyin's body. The jade vase in his hand began to crack. Two Daluo Jingxian were not a match for Yi Xian. The immortals could not believe their eyes. Thump, thump, thump. Like the beating of the war drums of slaughter, like the cries of all living beings, the indistinct sound of chanting could be heard in the void of the universe. This sound was like a funeral song for the dead, yet it was also like the weeping of a chaotic fiend god. A wisp of sorrow rippled through the heavens and the earth, causing one's soul to tremble upon hearing it. Chapter 395. Yi Xian was dressed in black, and his withered hair fluttered in the wind. There was no color in his eyes, and there was no breath of life around him. It was as if he had turned into a walking corpse. Even though the goddess of Moon Palace kept crying and calling behind him, he did not respond at all. Time was in chaos and space was collapsing. Yi Xian walked toward the Jade Emperor. With every step he took, the void under his feet turned into a vacuum. Even the spiritual qi between heaven and earth was being annihilated. This strange and horrible scene was simply appalling. No one knew what had happened to Yi Xian, and no one knew what secret method Yi Xian had used. However, in the eyes of the immortals, Yi Xian was neither a god nor a demon. It was as if he had turned into some kind of horrible existence. At this moment, Quafu's expression changed greatly, and the blood in his body was cooling down. He looked at Yi Xian with a touch of horror in his eyes, as if he was not facing a human, but an extremely horrible existence. Quafu retreated unconsciously, and the Jade Emperor's expression was even more uncertain. He directly summoned the Four Directions Dragon Seal to protect himself, because he found that Yi Xian was very strange at the moment, and it gave him a great sense of death. Xiao, come with me. Suddenly, Quafu appeared beside the goddess of Moon Palace, and was about to take her away from here. What happened to him? The goddess of Moon Palace asked anxiously. Obviously, Yi Xian's current state was not a good thing, because even the breath of a living person had disappeared from his body. This person is too strange. His breath does not belong to the three realms at all. I'm afraid that he has used some kind of terrible forbidden technique. Come with me quickly, and leave the celestial court, or there will be a great disaster. Quafu's face was slightly pale. Although he could not see what Yi Xian had done, as an ancient witch, He was very sensitive to intuition. Something that could make him feel fear was definitely not something he could resist. No, I'm not leaving. Yi Xian was behaving so strangely. How could the goddess of Moon Palace just walk away? No matter how hard Quafu tried to persuade her, she did not move at all. She even looked at Yi Xian worriedly with a touch of sadness in her eyes. The living scripture, the art of the dead, the song of transcendence in the boundless heaven and earth, the platform of primal chaos. Weep not. The end of life and death, the heaven-burying art, the song of the dead, the cry of gods and devils. The chanting of sutras in the heavens rumbled. The strand of chaotic light came from beyond the heavens and covered Yi Xian within. The chanting was boundless and untraceable, but it was filled with the will of eternal destruction. Yi Xian's hair was withered and lusterless, but his body was shining brightly. He pointed at the Jade Emperor, and a bit of black gas grew on his fingertip. It seemed to penetrate the barrier of time and space and quietly hit the Jade Emperor's chest. Puff! The Jade Emperor's chest was pierced through, and golden blood spurted out. There was no momentum that could shake the heavens and earth, nor was there the power of Daluo Jingxian. Yi Xian simply pointed at the Jade Emperor, but he had suffered an unimaginable injury. Square dragon seal, immortal and indestructible. The heavenly way dragon chi whizzed over and instantly repaired the Jade Emperor's body. However, his face was extremely pale, and even more terrifying and twisted, as if he was suffering a pain that he had never experienced before. Nirvana! Nirvana power? The Jade Emperor screamed in horror. He held the square dragon seal and retreated violently. He was millions of miles away from Yi Xian, but his body was trembling unconsciously. Nirvana power? How is this possible? Quafu also exclaimed in horror. He looked at Yi Xian's back and was extremely frightened. What was the Nirvana power? The Nirvana power was a kind of law that did not exist in the three realms of heaven, earth, and man. Legend had it that it was a law born from the chaos. It had not existed since the beginning of the world, because it represented destruction. No one had ever heard of anyone who could control it. The immortals were deathly silent, trembling without a sound. Yi Xian stood in the sky, his body completely unperturbed. He pointed again, and even though he was millions of miles away from the Jade Emperor, the terrifying Nirvana power still pierced through the Jade Emperor's heart. Rumble! The heavens shook, and all things were destroyed. Yi Xian crossed millions of miles with a single step. Under the shocked gazes of the immortals, Yi Xian reached out with his palm, as if he had imprisoned the world in his hand. Crack! Something terrifying happened. No matter how the Jade Emperor struck Yi Xian, with the immortal light of the great firmament, Yi Xian's body was completely unperturbed. His jade-like hand even grabbed the Jade Emperor's neck. Crack, crack, crack. The immortal light of the great firmament crumbled, and the dragon seal trembled. The Jade Emperor seemed to have turned into a powerless chick. His face swelled red as he struggled in Yi Xian's hand. He unleashed all kinds of immortal spells, but they could not harm Yi Xian at all. When man and halberd became one, heaven and earth were unharmed. The heaven-destroying halberd was Yi Xian, and Yi Xian was the heaven-destroying halberd. Even though the Jade Emperor's cultivation was unfathomable, the heaven-destroying halberd was the greatest killing weapon of all time. It would not be damaged even in the face of a pre-saint, let alone the Jade Emperor's attacks. Yi Xian was silent. His withered eyes showed no signs of life. He grabbed the Jade Emperor's neck and slowly raised his right fist. Under the horrified gazes of the immortals, he threw punch after punch at the Jade Emperor. Bang, bang, bang. Yi Xian's punches were not fast, but the Jade Emperor could not dodge them. His heart was pierced through by Yi Xian, and half of his face was smashed into a bloody mess. His fate was extremely miserable. The dragon seal hummed as the heavenly Tao's draconic qi gathered and restored the Jade Emperor's body. As the Jade Emperor was the master of the three realms, he was connected to the fate of the Celestial Court. As long as the Celestial Court was not destroyed, he would not die. However, the Jade Emperor's face turned green and red from Yi Xian's merciless attacks. Faced with Yi Xian's terrifying state, he could not fight back at all. He could only passively be killed by Yi Xian. This made him extremely ashamed and angry. Bang, bang. Guang Qingzi and Guanyin of the South Sea attacked again. Unfortunately, their immortal spells had no effect on Yi Xian. As Yi Xian mercilessly threw out 2 rays of light of nirvana, they directly pierced through their hearts. Their blood dyed the sky red as they retreated in fear. Yi Xian, you can't kill me, the Jade Emperor roared in shame, as Yi Xian mercilessly punched him by the neck. Unfortunately, Yi Xian's current state was very strange. He only shattered the Jade Emperor's body with his punches. It was as if no matter how much time passed, he had to completely kill the Jade Emperor. The world was silent, and the immortals were dead silent. Other than the sound of Yi Xian punching the Jade Emperor, there was no other sound in the world. Bang bang bang. After an unknown period of time, perhaps a day, or perhaps a year, the light around the Jade Emperor dimmed. Even the dragon seal had a faint crack. The Jade Emperor was really afraid, because he realized something extremely terrifying. Every time his body was restored, his heavenly Tao's draconic qi would decrease. If this continued, he might really be killed by Yi Xian. Chapter 396. It wasn't just the Jade Emperor who was terrified. Even the onlooking immortals kept quiet out of fear. They looked at the Jade Emperor with pity in their eyes. Unless a saint came, who could save the Jade Emperor. Just when everyone thought that the Jade Emperor would be killed by Yi Xian, a strange change finally happened to Yi Xian. The light of nirvana around him gradually dissipated, and the heaven-destroying halberd floated out of his body. A mouthful of blood flowed out from the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. It was too forced. It was still too forced. The heaven-destroying halberd was too powerful. Even though Yi Xian had fused with it, his cultivation was still too weak. He couldn't maintain this state for long. A good chance. The Jade Emperor, who originally thought that he was going to die, was overjoyed. Taking advantage of the time when Yi Xian's light of nirvana faded, he shook the 4 directions dragon seal, and blasted out a beam of great Luo immortal light, that blasted Yi Xian flying. Puffed! Yi Xian spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes focused, and a trace of sadness flashed through his eyes. Even though he had forcefully fused with the heaven-destroying halberd, he couldn't maintain this state. He was defeated by the Jade Emperor in the end. Just a little bit. If he could maintain this strange state, the Jade Emperor would have died for sure. Kill him! The Jade Emperor roared crazily. When he was mercilessly beaten to death by Yi Xian, he was already burning with rage. His heart was filled with fear, because he had never felt the fear of death before. However, Yi Xian's state just now terrified him to the core. A beam of Daoyuo immortal light blasted towards Yi Xian's forehead. Guang Qingzi and Guanyin of the South Sea also used all their cultivation to attack Yi Xian. At this time, Emperor Ziwei and King Chujiang were suppressed in the void by the 4-sided dragon seal. Except for Quafu, no one could resist the 3 Daoyuo Jingxian. However, even Quafu had to retreat in the face of the 3 Daoyuo Jingxian, not to mention that it was too late for him to help Yi Xian now. Am I going to die? The Daoyuo golden light pierced Yi Xian so hard that he couldn't open his eyes. His body was falling, and he saw the ferocious and vicious faces of the Jade Emperor and the other 2. A hint of unwillingness flashed across Yi Xian's eyes. Is today the day of my death? Daoyuo Jingxian? The Daoyuo Jingxian. If he could step into the Daoyuo Jingxian, today's ending would not be like this. Yi Xian smiled sadly. Under the terrifying attacks of the 3 Daoyuo Jingxian, he took one last look at the goddess of Guanghan. However, he saw that her lips were pale, and she was sobbing as she said something to him. However, Yi Xian couldn't hear what she was saying clearly, because he was drowned in the Daoyuo immortal light. In the next moment, his soul would scatter between the heaven and earth. Immeasurable heavenly lord! Suddenly, the wind and clouds changed, and a murderous aura soared to the sky. At the moment when Yi Xian was about to die, an immortal sword crossed the sky and arrived. The tyrannical sword radiance destroyed all things in mountains and rivers. Just the release of its aura was enough to send the 3 Daoyuo Jingxian flying. Chaos swirled and murderous aura filled the sky. The green-white immortal light shattered space and severed the void. When a sword floated above Yi Xian's head, it finally saved his life. Celestial slashing sword? The Jade Emperor roared in shock. Guanyin of the South Sea trembled silently. Guang Qingzi's face was blank. Not only the three Daluo Jinxian, but even the immortals were dead silent. Immeasurable heavenly lord, a green-robed Taoist chanted as he strolled over from the sky. With every step he took, a green lotus rose under his feet. Beautiful celestial music played in all directions. Shen Gongbao, you're not dead? When he saw who it was, Guang Qingzi exclaimed in shock. His eyes narrowed, let alone the Jade Emperor, Guanyin of the South Sea, and the others. The Jie sect is going to prosper. The Jie sect is going to prosper. Zhao Gongming was already in despair. However, when he saw Shen Gongbao and the celestial slashing sword, his entire body trembled in excitement. I'm under the orders of Tong Tian to protect the East Pole Emperor. If anyone wants to harm the East Pole Emperor, they'll have to ask for my celestial slashing sword first. Shen Gongbao smiled gently. However, when he finished speaking, the world became dead silent. Shen Gongbao was a disciple of Yuanshi Tianzuan in the past. He later betrayed the sect and became Tongtian's disciple. He had already fallen in the investiture of the Gods' War. He was one of the leaders of the investiture of the Gods' War. However, no one expected that Shen Gongbao was still alive. He actually brought the celestial slashing sword to the celestial court. What shocked the immortals the most was that Tong Tian actually bestowed the celestial slashing sword to Shen Gongbao and asked him to protect Yi Xian. This was simply unimaginable. The immortal slaying sword formation was the #1 weapon of the heavenly Tao. During the great god investiture tribulation in the past, Tong Tian wielded the immortal slaying four swords to fight against the four sages. Although he was defeated in the end, one could see how terrifying the immortal slaying four swords were. Tong Tian said, "This sword has four names. The first is the Zhu Xian sword. The second is the Tu Xian sword. The third is the immortal trapping sword. And the fourth is the immortal extinguishing sword." Hanging upside down on the door, it emits thunder and trembles. The sword's ray flashes. Even if he is a 10,000 tribulation immortal, he will not be able to escape this calamity. It was neither copper nor iron nor steel. It was once hidden under Mount Sudi. Without using the yin and yang reversal refinement, how could there not be water and fire tempering? Slaying immortal sharp, slaughtering immortal death, trapping immortal red light everywhere. The immortal ending immortals' transformations were infinitely wondrous, and the blood of the grand Luo divine immortals dyed his robes. With the immortal extinguishing sword, even Daluo could be killed. This was a sage's weapon, and it was not just for show. Today, if anyone wanted to kill Yi Xian, they would be going against Tong Tian. The Jade Emperor clenched his fists. He was not afraid of the immortal extinguishing sword and Shen Gongbao, nor did he have no means to resist the immortal extinguishing sword. However, this was already related to the battle of orthodoxy. If he dared to attack Yi Xian, he would be going against Tong Tian. Among the three pristine sages, if the Jade Emperor was asked who he feared the most, it would undoubtedly be Tong Tian. This Tong Tian was the most protective and lawless. He did not care if you were the heavenly emperor conferred by Tao ancestor Tong Tian. Anyone who disobeyed the will of the Tong Tian, even if he was the master of the three realms, he would probably be killed by the Tong Tian. Greetings to the Emperor of the East Pole. I'm late. Shen Gongbao smiled and strolled in front of Yi Xian. Fellow cultivator, thank you for your help today. Yi Xian cupped his hands and greeted Shen Gongbao. No matter what the purpose of the tribe of Jia was, it was a fact that Shen Gongbao had saved his life. He had to accept this favor. Yi Xian. The fairy of Guanghan's eyes were misty. She walked quickly toward Yi Xian. Xiao Yi, since his life is no longer in danger, we should leave. Suddenly, before the fairy of Guanghan could reach Yi Xian, Quafu stood between them. Looking at Quafu's stern expression, the fairy of Guanghan's face turned bitter. She knew what Quafu meant. Let me say goodbye to him for the last time. The fairy of Guanghan walked around Quafu and came to Yi Xian. Quafu sighed helplessly, but he did not stop her. Yi Xian, I have to go back to the Wu tribe. You have to be good in the future. Don't be so stubborn. The fairy of Guanghan caressed Yi Xian's cheek. A line of clear tears flowed slowly from her eyes. You can't go. Chapter 397. Yi Xian grabbed the fairy of Guanghan's hand. His voice was extremely low, and his eyes were filled with complex emotions. Until now, he still did not know what kind of feelings he had for the fairy of Guanghan. However, Yi Xian's heart was telling himself that he could never let the fairy of Guanghan leave his side. Let go. I am the goddess of the sorcerer tribe. I will return to the sorcerer tribe eventually. Remember not to look for me. The fairy of Guanghan cried out miserably. She shook off Yi Xian's hand with all her might. However, tears flowed from her eyes uncontrollably. Obviously, the fairy of Guanghan did not want to part with Yi Xian. However, there were some things that she could not resist. When she took out the ancestor sorcerer's token to act, it meant that she had to return to the sorcerer tribe and ask for forgiveness from the ancestor sorcerer. The goddess of the sorcerer tribe had used the ancestor sorcerer's token to help the human emperor. This was a taboo of the sorcerer tribe. It was a serious crime for the sorcerer tribe. If she stayed by Yi Xian's side, would the sorcerer tribe let it go? Emperor of the East Pole, don't think that you can keep Chang'e just because you have the protection of the Tongtian. In the eyes of the sorcerer tribe, you are still too weak. If you become a sage to be one day, you can come to the sorcerer tribe to take Chang'e back. Otherwise, I advise you not to have any ideas about the goddess of the sorcerer tribe. Quafu raised a black light that covered the sky and directly covered the fairy of Guanghan. When the wind blew, Quafu also took the fairy of Guanghan and shot into the distance. Want to leave? Yi Xian's face was gloomy and his voice was cold. When he took a step forward, the inverse immortal formation was about to activate again. However, before he could do anything, Shen Gongbao suddenly stood in front of him. My friend, let them go. The sorcerer tribe is not something that you and I can afford to offend. Even if you can keep the fairy of Guanghan today, when the sorcerer tribe gets angry, we are no match for them. Shen Gongbao advised. Yi Xian, don't come looking for me. I believe that you can step into the grand heavenly realm and the quasi-saint realm. If you can step into the quasi-saint realm, we will meet again one day. Fairy Guanghan's sobbing voice came from afar, but it made Yi Xian clench his fists. There was a flash of sadness in his eyes, and the aura around him was extremely chaotic. Weakness was the original sin. This was a principle that had never changed since the ancient times. If Yi Xian was a saint of the Hunyuan heavenly path today, who would dare to bully him, the Jade Emperor, the Magi, or the Chan school? Yi Xian really felt powerless. He had never felt so powerless in his thousands of years of cultivation. This made Yi Xian realize that even if he had to exhaust all means, he had to quickly improve his cultivation. Only in this way would he be able to stand proudly between the heavens and earth. Today, the fairy of Guanghan was taken away by Quafu because he was not strong enough. This kind of pain made Yi Xian feel bitter. He hated himself for being so weak. The heart-wrenching pain made Yi Xian a little breathless. It made his mind miserable, and he fell into a deep depression. Kill him. Suddenly, when Yi Xian fell into grief, the Jade Emperor's sinister and cold voice sounded out. A ray of great Luo immortal light suddenly struck Yi Xian's body, causing his body to be sent flying. How dare you? Shen Gongbao smiled and disappeared. His aura suddenly became gloomy. He had never thought that the Jade Emperor would dare to attack Yi Xian when he came with Tongtian's immortal ending sword. So what if you have the immortal ending sword? Today Yi Xian must die. The Jade Emperor roared ferociously. Since he had come this far, he had no scruples at all. If he let Yi Xian go today, the Jade Emperor would die in the future. Even if he had to offend Tongtian, he would kill Yi Xian today. Immortal ending sword. Shen Gongbao roared fiercely. He formed the immortal ending sword with both hands. The sword light that could destroy the heavens and earth whizzed down and directly attacked the Jade Emperor. Investiture of the Gods. This scroll of Investiture of the Gods was given by Yuanshi Tianzuan. The Jade Emperor had already used it to resist the immortal ending sword without caring about anything else. He even controlled the dragon seal to suppress Shen Gongbao, Emperor Ziwei, and the others. Obviously, no one could change his mind to kill Yi Xian. Guangqingzi, Taoist Zihang, I will stop them. The two of you quickly kill Yi Xian. The Jade Emperor had already gone mad, and was a decisive person. Today he did not marry the fairy of Guanghan, but Yi Xian must die. Because if Yi Xian stepped into the Daluo Jingxian, Yi Xian would definitely not let him go in the future. Emperor of the East Pole, quickly descend. Shen Gongbao's expression changed greatly. He roared at Yi Xian. He did not expect the Jade Emperor to be so crazy. Looking at his attitude, he would not stop until he killed Yi Xian. At the same time, Guang Qingzi and Guanyin of the South Sea looked at each other and saw the killing intent in each other's eyes. Even though Shen Gongbao came with Tong Tian's immortal ending sword, they were still Yuanshi Tianzuan's disciples. Since Yi Xian was already a member of the Tribulation sect, they could not let him go no matter what. Kill. The two Daluo Jingxian cast their immortal spells and directly ignored the terror of Tong Tian. They only wanted to kill Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian suffered a blow from the Jade Emperor. His entire body was cracked. However, with the inverse immortal formation diagram in hand, his injuries were not that serious. But if he had to face the two Daluo Jingxian alone, his life would be in danger. However, the departure of the fairy of Guanghan had already caused him grief. He secretly hated his weak cultivation, which caused an extremely terrifying change in his state of mind. It's still too early for you to kill me. Today Yi Xian lost. But don't be too proud. When I step into the Daluo realm, it will be the time for your souls to scatter. Primordial Spirit Void. Yi Xian roared loudly. His entire body escaped into the void and directly fled towards the lower realm. Yes, he was fleeing. It was also the first time Yi Xian was fleeing for his life. However, Yi Xian knew that he could not die today, because only by surviving today's calamity could he advance towards the Daluo Jingxian. However, at this moment, Yi Xian's state of mind was undergoing an extremely terrifying change. In the past, he was afraid of the various orthodoxies. It was inevitable that he would be restrained when doing things. However, now that he had fallen out with the Jade Emperor and was like fire and water with the Chan sect, he had nothing to worry about. As long as he could increase his cultivation, there was nothing that Yi Xian did not dare to do. If he did not explode in silence, he would die in silence. This sentence completely explained Yi Xian's current state of mind. Kill him. We can't let him escape to the Earth Immortal Realm. If he steps into the Daluo Jingxian in the future, we will all die. The Jade Emperor was fighting with Shen Gongbao. He even blocked Emperor Ziwei and King Chujiang by himself. He shouted anxiously at Guang Qingzi and Guanyin of the South Sea. Chase after him. Guang Qingzi and Guanyin of the South Sea looked at each other and saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. Just as the Jade Emperor said, if they let Yi Xian escape today, when Yi Xian stepped into the Daluo realm in the future, they would definitely end up in an extremely miserable state. The two Daluo Jingxian immediately chased after Yi Xian. Although Yi Xian used the primordial spirit void, the two Daluo Jingxian could still sense some traces of Yi Xian's presence. Chapter 398. Primordial Spirit Void, Limitless and Formless. Traversing 10,000 miles of wind, thunder and fire, and tearing through 90,000 miles of the Void River, Yi Xian had already entered the vast and boundless earthly immortal realm. However, the two Daluo Jingxian behind him were madly pursuing him, causing terrifying destruction as they fled and pursued. Rivers were vaporized into smoke. 30,000 miles of mountains were reduced to scorched earth. Under the ripples of the Daluo immortal light, countless beings in the earthly immortal realm were reduced to ashes. Yi Xian's eyes were sinister and his aura was weak. He turned into a stream of light and frantically fled. Previously, when he fused with the heaven-destroying halberd, it gave him unimaginable strength. However, at this moment, his meridians were shattered and an unimaginable pain was eroding his body and mind. Yi Xian was gravely injured in the battle of the Celestial Court. At this moment, he had less than 80% of his cultivation left. If not for the defying immortal formation and various forbidden secret techniques in his hands, he would have already perished in the hands of the two Daluo Jingxian. Although Yi Xian seemed to be frantically fleeing, Guanyin of the South Sea and Guang Qingzi were not having a good time either. Although they were Daluo Jingxian, they were also gravely injured in the battle of the Celestial Court. At this moment, they were overdrawing their cultivation to pursue Yi Xian. Moreover, because Yi Xian had the defying immortal formation diagram, The two Daluo did not dare to approach Yixian. They could only unleash their immortal techniques from 10,000 miles away to kill Yixian. The pursuit of Yixian by the two Daluo Jingxian naturally attracted the attention of the beings in the earthly immortal realm. However, no one dared to meddle in this matter. This was because it was fine for them to watch a battle of this level. If they got too close, they would be courting death. Yixian, surrender. You won't be able to escape. Guang Qingzi let out a low roar. Although the heaven-flipping seal was broken, it still possessed an inconceivable might. The might that could destroy mountains and rivers violently smashed towards Yixian. Clang! The inverse celestial matrix glowed as the heaven-destroying halberd blasted the cataclysmic seal away, allowing Yixian to make use of this force to escape into the distance. He's about to die. Chase him. Guanyin of the South Sea's face was pale. The jade vase reversed the rivers and mountains, pouring out a glazed Buddhist light in hopes of trapping Yixian. Unfortunately, Yixian's primordial spirit void mystic art was too unpredictable. It directly broke through the southern sea Guanyin's seal and disappeared from their sight once again. The chase lasted for an entire month. Not only had Yixian exhausted his cultivation, but even the two Daluo Jingxian had not fared well. Change. The Big Dipper 36 transformations was a Taoist sacred art. In the hands of Yixian, it was refined and used with his primordial spirit. This allowed him to turn into a stubborn rock and hide in a nameless mountain range. Rumble. The two Daluo Jingxian swept across the sky, causing the mountains to rumble. However, they did not find any trace of Yixian. Yixian had turned into a stubborn rock and did not move at all, even concealing his aura to the extreme. Wang. The Sumeru space opened and various immortal pills and elixirs were swallowed into Yixian's mouth. His eyes were sinister and ruthless as he circulated the undying immortal scripture to refine these pills and elixirs. He was also constantly healing his injuries. Beyond the three realms and not within the five elements, the Daluo Jingxian was too frightening. This was because they had grasped the power of the laws of heaven and earth. Their every move carried the might of heaven and earth. Yixian was only temporarily hiding. It would not be long before the two of them found his true body. Rumble. Sure enough, in just half a day, the two grand heavenly immortals returned to the nameless mountain range. Guang Qingzi's gaze was even more sinister as he surveyed the mountains, saying, Yixian, this poor Taoist knows that you are in this mountain range. You can't escape. Destroy this mountain range. I don't believe that he won't come out. Even the Daluo Jingxian could not find Yixian's traces with the primordial spirit void secret technique, coupled with the heavenly spirit 36 transformations. However, they could still roughly sense Yixian's location under the locking of his aura. Suppress. The cataclysmic seal blotted out the sky and smashed down with majestic immortal radiance. It was also at this moment that Yixian's expression turned cold, as he turned into a streak of golden light and shot into the distance. Bang! The mountains collapsed and the earth exploded. Amidst the dust that filled the sky, the two Daluo Jingxian chased after Yixian. However, the mountains behind them had already collapsed. It was an extremely terrifying sight. At the same time, the three realms were in an uproar as discussions broke out. In the Battle of the Heavenly Court, Shen Gongbao fought an unprecedented battle with the Jade Emperor with the celestial slashing sword. However, the Jade Emperor was too terrifying. He was indeed the lord of the three realms. Even though Shen Gongbao had the celestial slashing sword, he was still defeated in the end. Without Yixian's existence, Shen Gongbao, Empress Ziwei, and the others had no desire to continue fighting. They all left the celestial court and headed down to the lower realms to search for Yixian's whereabouts. However, the celestial court grand event this time had shaken the celestial court to an unimaginable degree. It also let the three realms know that a great calamity was quietly beginning. There were 4 emperors of the celestial court. Emperor Jinwu's soul had dispersed. Empress Ziwei had rebelled against the celestial court. King Chujiang of the underworld and the Jade Emperor stood on the opposite side. And the cause of all of this was none other than the Emperor East End. This caused the living beings of the three realms to be utterly shocked. They never imagined that not only had the Emperor East survived 300 years ago, he had even caused such a huge commotion 300 years later. The Jade Emperor was furious, and the 33-layered celestial court was ruined. This was something that had never happened before. Even when the monkeys stirred up the celestial court in the past, it did not cause such a scene. The most important thing was that Shen Gongbao was a key figure in the investiture of the Gods' War. He actually protected Yi Xian with the immortal ending sword. This also meant that the sages had interfered. The dispute between the Chan school and Jie school rose again, causing the three realms to be extremely worried. One must know that during the investiture of the Gods' War, countless people died in the three realms. Even the sages were involved in this great calamity, causing the three realms to be in a terrible situation. How could the three realms not be extremely worried? At the same time, the immortals of the Chan school all appeared in various parts of the Earth Immortal realm. Other than the immortal Yu Ding, who was recuperating in seclusion, a total of 6 Daoyuo golden immortals appeared. Judging from their stance, they were definitely going to kill Yi Xian. Of course, the Jie school could not sit back and do nothing to protect Yi Xian. With Shen Gongbao as the leader, the ancient great mediums of the Jie school also appeared. This also caused the Earth Immortal realm to be in complete chaos. The dispute between the Chan school and Jie school also arose because of this. On the other hand, 100 years had passed. Traces of Yi Xian came from the Earth Immortal realm from time to time. Of course, there was also the pursuit of the 2 Daoyuo Jingxian. This was already known by everyone in the Earth Immortal realm. In these 100 years, Yi Xian resisted the pursuit of the 2 Daoyuo Jingxian while consuming elixirs to heal his injuries. As time passed, Yi Xian's injuries also gradually recovered. The 2 Daoyuo Jingxian felt increasingly powerless in the pursuit of Yi Xian for 100 years. Finally, in a moment of carelessness, Yi Xian completely broke through the two's restriction and disappeared in the vast and boundless Earth Immortal realm. Chapter 399. Above the firmament in the void. Guangqingzi's golden light was faint while Guanyin of the South Sea had a gloomy expression. However, when they looked at each other, they could see the worry in each other's eyes. They had pursued Yi Xian for 100 years, but he still managed to escape. This made them extremely worried. Today, Yi Xian had escaped. If he were to step into the grand heavenly realm in the future, he would definitely seek them out for revenge. When they thought of the horror of Yi Xian stepping into the grand heavenly realm, a solemn look flashed in their eyes. If we let him escape today, there will be endless trouble in the future. Guangqingzi sighed. Senior brother, please follow me back to the Spirit Mountain and ask for the Buddha's golden alms bowl. When the time comes, we will definitely be able to illuminate Yi Xian's location and kill him. Guanyin of the South Sea said in a low voice. All right. The two of them rode on the golden cloud and headed straight for the Aparagodania continent. Clearly, the Buddha's golden alms bowl was the only way to find Yi Xian now. From this, one could see their determination to kill Yi Xian. The sky was high and the clouds were faint, with clouds lingering around. Ripples were spreading in the void, producing waves after waves. Yi Xian's figure appeared. When he finally confirmed that the 2 grand heavenly realms had left, he sneered as a cold murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Yi Xian seemed to have been escaping the pursuit of the 2 grand heavenly realms for 100 years, but it also allowed him to recover from his injuries. Currently, his cultivation was only at the early stage of the all-heaven golden immortal realm, and had not improved at all. Although he was only at the early stage of the all-heaven golden immortal realm, once he recovered from his injuries, and had the immortal defying formation in hand, he would be invincible even if he could not defeat the 2 grand heavenly realms. As for why he wanted to escape, it was because he was alone. If he really fought against the 2, he would definitely fall into a desperate situation if the grand heavenly realms of the Chan sect came to his aid. You want to ask the Buddha's golden alms bowl to kill me? Yi Xian sneered as a strange light flashed in his eyes. The viciousness in his eyes made one shudder. With a step, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. However, he was heading towards the golden cave of the Jade Spring Mountain, which was also enlightened being Yu Ding's dojo. Yi Xian's thoughts were very simple. Since he was already at odds with the Chan school, he didn't have anything to worry about. Moreover, his cultivation was only at the early stage of the golden immortal stage. This was his biggest problem. And was on the verge of death in their battle. And was enlightened you was on the verge. And was enlightened was severely injured. And was to be on was to be to death. And was to be. Was he. Was at. Was severely injured. Was severely was to be on was. Yi Xian was a vengeful person. He was also a person who would not get up early if there was no benefit. Not to mention the enmity between him and enlightened being Yu Ding. Yi Xian coveted Daoyuo Jinxian's cultivation. The battle in the celestial court made Yi Xian understand that external forces were just external forces. Only his own strength was fundamental. It was not that he did not have the means to quickly improve his cultivation, but since he returned from the mortal realm, he had been in a killing spree. Even if he wanted to devour other people's Dao fruits to improve his cultivation, he did not have the opportunity to do so. The most important problem was that Yi Xian was an all-heaven golden immortal. He could only devour people of the same level to improve his cultivation. Even if he devoured immortals below the all-heaven golden immortal realm, his cultivation would only improve with a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. In fact, when he killed Yang Jian back then, he could have completely devoured Yang Jian's cultivation. However, if he did so, he would definitely become the target of public criticism. This was why he did not do so. But now it was different. He had already fallen out with the Jade Emperor, and was as hostile as fire and water with the Chan sect. Even the Western Spirit Mountain regarded him as an enemy. This made him have no scruples. Now, Yi Xian did not care about the cultivation of all-heaven golden immortal realm, because he knew that even if he devoured the Dao fruits of people of the same level as him, it would be an extremely long process to step into Daoyuo Jinxian. Yi Xian was in a hurry. He did not have the time to cultivate step by step. Now there were only two ways for him to quickly step into the Zenith Heaven realm. First, he could devour the 9,000-year-old peach of immortality, the ginseng fruit of grand immortal Zhen Yuan, or the 9 transformations golden pill of Tishida Palace. Second, he could use the tribulation transcender technique to devour Daoyuo Jinxian's cultivation and Dao fruits. There was no need to think about the first method. The current Yi Xian did not have the ability to do it. Although the second method was extremely difficult, Yi Xian saw a glimmer of hope. Perfected Yu Ding. Yes, it was perfected Yu Ding. This person's cultivation was the weakest among the 12 ancient golden immortals. Moreover, he was in seclusion to heal his injuries, and was alone in Golden Glow Cave. He was also the best target for Yi Xian to devour. Jade Spring Mountain Golden Glow Cave. Surrounded by mountains, immortal Qi rose. There was also a mountain protecting array that surrounded all directions. Birds and spirit beasts could be seen everywhere in the mountains. It was indeed a paradise. Inside Golden Glow Cave, there was an immortal spring that rose with immortal light. It was a treasure land that was naturally formed when heaven and earth were first created. It could allow people to reconstruct their physical bodies and refine their immortal qi. It was extremely beneficial for immortals. Perfected Yu Ding sat cross-legged in the immortal spring. His hair was silver white, and his face was slightly flushed. He was circulating the 8-9 arcane art to absorb the immortal qi in the immortal spring, constantly repairing his physical body and essence soul. 300 years ago, Yi Xian let the heavenly demon into his body, causing unimaginable damage to him. After 300 years of healing, his physical body was already flawless. However, his essence soul was still slightly weak, because the power of the heavenly demon was too difficult to deal with. It would take another 10 years to completely expel it. A mouthful of turbid qi spurted out from perfected Yu Ding's mouth and nose, causing a muffled sound to come from the void. At this moment, perfected Yu Ding slowly opened his eyes. What a strange power of the heavenly demon. If not for the 8-9 arcane art being extremely profound, I'm afraid that the power of the heavenly demon would have corroded my essence soul. Perfected Yu Ding muttered to himself in a low voice. Fortunately, Yi Xian will also be devoured by the heavenly demon. he will also end up dying. Perfected Yu Ding got up from the immortal spring, a hint of relief flashing across his eyes. However, when he saw the three-pointed, double-edged sabers on the cliff's cave, sadness flashed across his eyes. Disciple, although you were beaten to death by Yi Xian, don't be afraid. I will definitely beg Master Yuanshi to condense your scattered soul, and let you condense your true spirit, and be reborn. Perfected Yu Ding muttered bitterly. However, when he thought of the method to condense his true spirit, he was not so confident. One had to know that if an immortal soul was scattered and died, it would require the means of a saint to condense his soul again. This was already a heaven-defying method. Even a saint could not use it lightly. Although Yuanshi Tianzuan was one of the 3 pure ones, he would not do such a heaven-defying thing for Yang Jian. Oh, which evil creature dares to spy on me? Perfected Yu Ding was originally immersed in grief, but after all, he was Daoyuo Jingxian. His immortal sense covered the entire Jade Spring Mountain, and immediately sensed that there was a demon secretly spying on him outside the Golden Cloud's cave. Chapter 400. Buzz. The immortal light of the great all-embracing heaven rippled out, and imprisoned the demon in the Golden Glow Cave. As Perfected Yu Ding casually cast a restriction, the demon was also immobilized on the spot. When Perfected Yu Ding saw the demon in front of him, a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. The murderous intent in his eyes also dissipated at this moment. It was a peacock with colorful feathers, and a 5-colored divine light blooming around its body. It was extremely lovable at first glance. At this moment, it was trying to escape in fear. However, under the imprisonment of Perfected Yu Ding, it could only tremble on the spot. 5-colored peacock? Perfected Yu Ding exclaimed in surprise. He never expected that although this demon was extremely weak, its true form was the 5-colored peacock that was rarely seen in the 3 realms of heaven, earth and man. This is the 5-colored divine light? Perfected Yu Ding sensed it slightly, and his expression changed slightly. This was because the Peacock clan was extremely rare in this world. Why would it appear in his Jade Spring Mountain? Greetings, Perfected Yu Ding. The 5-colored peacock had yet to transform, but its spiritual intelligence was extremely high. After the initial shock, it bowed to Perfected Yu Ding like a human. This made Perfected Yu Ding nod slightly. However, he was very curious as to why the 5-colored peacock would appear outside the Golden Glow Cave. Where did you come from, little demon? Why are you spying on me? Perfected Yu Ding asked curiously. Perfected One, please don't blame me. I've admired you for a long time. I came to Jade Spring Mountain from the North Continent after countless dangers. I hope you can accept me as your disciple. The 5-colored peacock kept bowing, its voice trembling slightly. Upon hearing the 5-colored peacock's words, Perfected Yu Ding was puzzled and said, "You're really ignorant. The Peacock clan is blessed by nature. Seeing that you have the 5-colored divine light, you should go to the Western Spirit Mountain to seek the protection of Mahamayuri. Why do you want to be my disciple? Perfected One, you're one of the 12 ancient golden immortals, and nurtured perfected Lord Yang Jian, the god of war of the 3 realms. You're the only master in the 3 realms of heaven, earth and man. Although Mahamayuri and I are of the same clan, you're still better in imparting knowledge," the 5-colored peacock said solemnly. As the saying goes, flattery never gets through. Moreover, the 5-colored peacock had compared Immortal Yu Ding to Mahamayuri, which made Immortal Yu Ding feel a little proud. Immortal Yu Ding had lived for countless years. Although he was a little weak among Daoyuo Jingxian, he was most proud of his preaching. Otherwise, how could he cultivate Yang Jian, the first person of the 3rd generation of the Chan sect? Perhaps it was because of Yang Jian's departure, or perhaps it was because he liked the talent of the 5-colored peacock, but Perfected Yu Ding really had the intention to take the 5-colored peacock as a disciple. After all, when it came to the 3 realms of heaven, earth and man, the Peacock clan was absolutely blessed by nature. As long as they were given a little bit of training, they would definitely become powerful existences. Moreover, their innate divine light of 5 colors could wipe out all the spiritual treasures in the world. Its power was definitely not inferior to Yang Jian's Dharma Eye of Destruction. You can stay in the Golden Cloud Cave for the time being. I will teach you some supernatural powers. If you can comprehend them in 3 days, I will accept you as my disciple. Perfected Yu Ding considered for a long time, and already had the intention of taking in a disciple. However, if he directly took the 5-colored peacock in as his disciple, it would be too casual. He still had to test the other party's potential. Master, thank you for taking me in. The 5-colored peacock shed tears of gratitude, and kept bowing to Perfected Yu Ding. This also made Perfected Yu Ding accept the other party's big gift with a smile. In this way, the 5-colored peacock stayed in the Golden Cloud Cave, and Perfected Yu Ding even taught it some magic arts. As the days passed, Perfected Yu Ding was shocked to find that the 5-colored peacock's potential was simply incredible. Immortal spells and Taoist spells could be learned with a single touch. The abstracts of spells could be learned easily. No matter what spells Perfected Yu Ding taught, the 5-colored peacock could cast them in a day. This made Perfected Yu Ding extremely happy. If Yang Jian was a genius, then the 5-colored peacock's potential was simply unprecedented. This also made Perfected Yu Ding think that heaven had eyes, and sent him a disciple with incredible potential. The 5-colored peacock finally became the disciple of Perfected Yu Ding. The master and disciple cultivated immortal magic every day. Kong Li was extremely filial, and made Perfected Yu Ding laugh heartily. Even the arts of 8-9 had been taught to Kong Li. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. After 10 years of getting along, Perfected Yu Ding had completely recovered from the sadness of Yang Jian's death. Every day, in addition to guiding Kong Li's cultivation, he also traveled all over the mountains and rivers to pick spirit herbs to improve his cultivation. And Kong Li did not disappoint Yu Ding. In 10 years, he had entered the Grand Unity Xian Immortal Realm from the Celestial Immortal Realm. This kind of terrifying cultivation speed made Perfected Yu Ding smile from ear to ear. Perfected Yu Ding believed that in less than 3,000 years, his disciple would be able to step into the All-Heaven Realm. At that time, another war god of the 3 realms would appear in the world. He would also let all the people in the 3 realms know that he, Yu Ding, had once again cultivated an earth-shaking figure. At first, Perfected Yu Ding was still somewhat wary of Kong Li, but as 10 years passed, this kind of vigilance had disappeared. Kong Li was also very sensible, and accompanied Perfected Yu Ding day and night. This also made Perfected Yu Ding feel the relationship between master and disciple again. Perfected Yu Ding sat cross-legged in the immortal spring, and warned Kong Li very solemnly, "Disciple, I'm going to go into seclusion today to expel the power of the heavenly demon in my primordial spirit. I can't be disturbed, otherwise there will be a risk of chi deviation." "Master, don't worry. With your disciple guarding you, no one will disturb your brother." Kong Li bowed, but when he lowered his eyebrows, a sinister and cruel light quietly flashed across his eyes, and then disappeared in an instant. "I don't know why, but these days I have a feeling that something bad is going to happen." After all, Daoyuo Jingxian was Daoyuo Jingxian, and could already see a trace of the heaven's secret. Perfected Yu Ding frowned slightly, and kept calculating the heaven's secret, but he did not get any answer. "Master, you are overthinking. You are one of the 12 ancient golden immortals, and a second-generation disciple of the Chan sect. Who would dare to provoke you? Besides, with your disciple guarding you, you can go into seclusion at ease." Kong Li smiled. "Yes." Perfected Yu Ding nodded slowly and sighed. "It seems that I am overthinking." Buzz! The immortal light of the great all-embracing heaven rippled out, and a restriction was cast by Perfected Yu Ding, which also covered him and the entire immortal spring. As he continued to circulate the 8-9 arcane art, he also entered a meditative state. The immortal light surged and his face was distorted. In the restriction, a wisp of black chi flashed across the space between Perfected Yu Ding's eyebrows from time to time. Obviously, he was dispelling the last wisp of heavenly demon power in his primordial spirit. Outside the restriction, Kong Li's smile was no longer there. His handsome face was a little distorted, and there was an extremely cruel and cold look in his eyes when he looked at Perfected Yu Ding. Time passed bit by bit. The sun rose from the east and set in the west. The stars moved and the sun and moon alternated. When 3 days and 3 nights had passed, Kong Li finally got up from his cross-legged position. Tap, tap, tap. Kong Li strolled by the immortal spring and looked at perfected Yu Ding indifferently and emotionlessly. His low voice also sounded in the golden glow cave. Yu Ding. Oh Yu Ding, you're really stupid. Today, I'll devour your Dao fruit and beat you to death. It can be considered as settling the grudge between us. Rumble. Kong Li struck out with his palm. He was not a primordial unity Xian immortal. The golden light of the great all-embracing heaven that shot out was extremely terrifying. In the void, there was an inverse immortal formation that appeared and instantly suppressed perfected Yu Ding in the immortal spring. Chapter 401. Immortal Yu Ding suddenly opened his eyes. His body was trembling like a sieve. His originally flushed face had turned purple and twisted at this moment. Under his skin, the blue veins were wriggling like maggots, making him look extremely terrifying at first glance. The inverse immortal formation had reduced his cultivation, and the golden light of heaven had suppressed him. The most important problem was that immortal Yu Ding was in a deep meditation and could not be disturbed by outsiders. This great tribulation had already caused him to enter a state of Qigong deviation. My disciple, immortal Yu Ding roared, and looked at Kong Li with bloodshot eyes. He had never thought that his disciple, whom he had painstakingly cultivated for 10 years, would attack him when he was in seclusion. Kong Li sneered, and looked down at Yu Ding with his hands behind his back. There was no trace of humility on his face. A contemptuous smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. It's right to say that you are stupid. The peacock family is extremely rare in this world. What kind of luck do you have to take the 5-colored peacock as your disciple? Kong Li sneered and said calmly, Who are you? If immortal Yu Ding still could not see that there was something wrong with Kong Li at this time, then he was extremely stupid. This also made him roar and stare at Kong Li. Take a closer look at who I am. Kong Li, no, it should be Yi Xian. A burst of immortal light rippled around him, and Yi Xian's appearance appeared. He was looking at Yu Ding with a gloomy face. Yi Xian! Immortal Yu Ding cried out in horror. His eyes were frozen, and his aura became extremely chaotic. He had never thought that Yi Xian was still alive, and had appeared in front of him. No, impossible, you, how could you not be dead? After a full 10 breaths, immortal Yu Ding screamed. He could not believe his eyes. He could not believe it, nor did he dare to believe it. Immortal Yu Ding clearly remembered that during the battle between the two of them, Yi Xian had attracted the sky demon into his body. He would definitely suffer a backlash and die without a doubt. But now, the other party appeared in front of him alive. How did Yi Xian survive? Unfortunately, Yi Xian didn't reply to Taoist Master Yu Ding's fear and uneasiness. He calmly looked at Taoist Master Yu Ding, but when his eyes opened and closed, there was only a cold and merciless expression. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Let me send you on your last journey, Yi Xian said calmly. You want to kill me? No, you can't kill me. Reverend Yu Ding's face was pale, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Even his voice was trembling, because he couldn't even use a trace of immortal power at this moment. Tribulation immortal technique. Yi Xian smiled cruelly, as he formed a strange immortal incantation with both of his hands. Black runes condensed and instantly covered Taoist Master Yu Ding, causing him to let out a miserable cry of pain. What immortal technique is this? Under the terrifying power of the tribulation immortal technique, immortal Yu Ding's face twisted, and he trembled as he roared. But his body was being destroyed inch by inch, and the great terror of death was growing in his heart. Tribulation immortal technique. Swallow the Dao fruit, and transform your cultivation. It is a forbidden secret technique in the immortal scripture. Swallowing your cultivation will also allow me to reach a higher level of enlightenment. Yi Xian calmly said. He sat down cross-legged, and his body seemed to turn into a dark vortex, violently sucking in immortal Yu Ding's great all-embracing immortal power, and accelerating his death. After 10 years of planning, he would kill in one blow, and not give immortal Yu Ding a chance to turn the tables. This was what Yi Xian wanted to do. Daoyuo Jingxian was Daoyuo Jingxian after all. Although Immortal Yu Ding was injured and Yi Xian could kill him with the inverse immortal formation, this was an extremely long process. If the battle between the two attracted the attention of others, this was not something that Yi Xian wanted to see. The best way was to let them let down their guard and kill them at the right time. This was also the reason why Yi Xian turned into a 5-colored peacock and took Immortal Yu Ding as his master. Although he used 10 years to let Immortal Yu Ding let down his guard, he also achieved the effect of killing him in one blow and completely put Immortal Yu Ding in a dead end. Bang! Immortal Yu Ding's body finally collapsed, and his nascent spirit was revealed. However, Yi Xian was already prepared and directly sucked the nascent spirit over and suppressed it in his hand. Yi Xian, if you kill me, Yuanshi Tianzuan will not let you go. Taoist Master Yu Ding knew that he would undoubtedly die. Even if he prayed to Yi Xian for his life, it wouldn't be of any use. This also caused him to roar at Yi Xian, causing his primordial spirit to slightly tremble. Unfortunately, in the face of Immortal Yu Ding's death threat, Yi Xian smiled cruelly. The Calamity Immortal technique was applied to Immortal Yu Ding's nascent spirit, constantly obliterating his nascent spirit's immortal light and transforming it into strands of great all-embracing immortal power that he wildly absorbed. Ah! Miserable screams filled the air. The Calamity Immortal technique was an extremely cruel technique. It made Immortal Yu Ding suffer a fate worse than death. The entire Golden Afterglow cave was in turmoil. His body collapsed and his nascent spirit was obliterated. The entire Golden Afterglow cave was filled with rich, great, all-embracing immortal power, and the laws of heaven and earth spread within. Yi Xian was completely immersed in the great, all-embracing immortal power, gradually refining it for his own use. At the same time, Western Spirit Mountain, Great Thunderclap Temple. 3,000 Buddhas, 18 Arhats, Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. Buddhist light illuminated the sky. At the highest point in the center, Duobao Rilai sat cross-legged on a 9th-grade golden lotus. The merciful Buddhist light behind him seemed to illuminate the 3 realms. My Buddha is merciful. Yi Xian has already become a demon. Buddha, please bestow the golden alms bowl to find his whereabouts. My spirit mountain will slay demons and defend the Tao, returning peace to the 3 realms. Guanyin of the South Sea put her palms together and spoke benevolently. Amitabha. Duobao Rilai put his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice. Mercy grew between his brows, giving people a feeling of compassion. Buddhist light filled the sky, and a golden alms bowl appeared in his palms. This golden alms bowl can see the heavens above and the 9 underworlds below. It's a rare innate spirit treasure. I'll lend it to you for the time being. Duobao Rilai's voice was like a bell. Guanyin of the South Sea solemnly accepted the golden alms bowl. Just as she was about to leave, Duobao Rilai spoke again. Although Yi Xian has become a demon, my Western Spirit Mountain has crossed the 3 realms. This Buddha hopes that you can guide him to do good. If he can convert to Buddhism, it will be a great merit. Guanyin of the South Sea was stunned when she heard Duobao Rilai's words. She naturally understood that the Buddha wanted her to subdue Yi Xian and convert to Spirit Mountain. This made her feel complicated. She could only chant the name of Buddha and leave on a cloud. Buddha, Yi Xian has rebelled against the celestial court. If Spirit Mountain accepts him, wouldn't it be? Mahakasyapa wanted to say something, but stopped. He clearly couldn't understand the Buddha's thoughts. Amitabha. Duobao Rilai smiled and said, the 3 realms are in chaos, and the Chan dynasty and Jia dynasty are fighting. Yi Xian is the main character of this great calamity. If he can join Spirit Mountain, this calamity will be eliminated. My Buddha is merciful. 3,000 Buddhas chanted the name of Buddha. The other Bodhisattvas and Buddhas nodded in agreement. Chapter 402. There were 2 sides to the story. Guanyin of the South Sea had borrowed the Buddha's golden alms bowl, while Master Guangchengzi was waiting at the base of Spirit Mountain. The 2 of them stood side by side, illuminated by the golden alms bowl, and illuminated the world with an illusory scene. This is Jade Spring Mountain? When the scene in the golden alms bowl entered their eyes, they were taken aback, and then their auras fell into chaos. Not good, Yuding is in danger. Master Guangchengzi cried out in alarm as he unleashed his origin immortal power and rushed toward Jade Spring Mountain. Guanyin of the South Sea followed closely behind, not daring to tarry. Jade Spring Mountain Golden Dawn Cave. Taoist Master Yuding's primordial spirit was dim and lusterless. His body had long since collapsed without a trace, and a weak groan came from his primordial spirit. The zenith heaven immortal force that floated in the Golden Cloud Cave was completely absorbed by Yi Xian. Yi Xian was glowing. This was an extreme type of golden light. Even when he breathed in and out, rays of golden light shot out from his mouth and nose, causing the surrounding space to distort to the extreme. Suddenly, Yi Xian opened his eyes. His face was flushed red, but when he looked outside the Golden Dawn Cave, his flushed face instantly turned gloomy. They came so quickly? Yi Xian muttered. Even though they were thousands of miles apart, Yi Xian could still feel the irritable auras of the South Sea Guanyin and Guanyin. This caused his eyes to turn cold, and the corners of his mouth curved into a cruel smile. Yi Xian was not at all surprised that the South Sea Guanyin and Master Guangchengzi had been able to find him. He knew that there were countless treasures in the three realms, and there were bound to be some that could track his movements. However, Yi Xian wasn't unprepared. The immortal defying formation covered him up and directly concealed his aura. He even used the primordial spirit void secret technique to allow him to escape into the void and directly conceal his aura. Yi Xian, you will not be able to leave. Even if my soul is destroyed today, the 12 primordial gold immortals will never let you go. Taoist Master Yuding's primordial spirit was illusory and had already reached the point of exhaustion. However, when he sensed the auras of the Southern Sea Guanyin and the other two, he roared at Yi Xian before he died. You really talk a lot of nonsense. Yi Xian smiled coldly and slapped down with his palm and fingers. In an instant, Immortal Yuding's soul was scattered and he died. A shrill scream came from his primordial spirit. Wang! Yi Xian didn't even let go of the power of Taoist Master Yuding's shattered primordial spirit. Under the terrifying effect of the Tribulation Transcender technique, he directly swallowed the power of Taoist Master Yuding's primordial spirit. How dare you! Suddenly Jade Spring Mountain shook violently. The Buddha's golden alms bowl covered the sky and the earth, and thousands of rays of Buddhist light fell down and covered Jade Spring Mountain. It was also at this time that Guanyin of the South Sea and Guangchengzi suddenly rushed into Golden Dawn Cave, but they saw the scene of perfected Yuding's soul being scattered. Senior brother? Junior brother? The two trembled and roared. Their eyes were already red, but they were unable to save perfected Yuding's life. Yi Xian, I'll kill you. Guangchengzi's zenith heaven immortal light erupted, and he slapped his palm and fingers at Yi Xian. Guanyin of the South Sea was even more sinister and ruthless. However, the Buddha's golden alms bowl in the sky had already locked onto Yi Xian's aura. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was already prepared. He didn't waste any words with the two of them. The defying immortal formation separated the sky and earth, and the heaven-destroying halberd floated out. When the two strange and unpredictable auras covered Yi Xian, he instantly disappeared from Golden Dawn Cave. The heaven-destroying halberd sliced through space and time. The defying immortal formation reversed heaven and earth, and the nascent spirit void allowed Yi Xian to step into the void. He instantly tore through the Buddha's golden alms bowl's barrier and disappeared from Jade Spring Mountain. How? How is this possible? The Buddha's golden alms bowl couldn't restrain him. If Yi Xian's killing of Yuding had shaken Guanyin of the South Sea, then Yi Xian's breaking of the Buddha's golden alms bowl's seal was beyond her imagination. After all, the Buddha's golden alms bowl was a connate spirit treasure and a great sealing artifact. Even the Daluo Jingxian couldn't escape from it, but Yi Xian hadn't been hindered in the slightest. This was a fantasy. In fact, Guanyin of the South Sea had underestimated Yi Xian. Although Yi Xian's cultivation was only that of an all-heaven golden immortal, his treasures were all extraordinary. The heaven-destroying halberd, the defying immortal formation, and the bronze immortal sutra that had never been used before. The defying immortal formation was the life's work of Liu Bai, an eternal genius. Yi Xian had spent 300 years to refine it, and it possessed unfathomable power. The heaven-destroying halberd had always been mysterious. Yi Xian couldn't unleash its full power. But it wasn't called the greatest killing artifact of all time for nothing. How could a mere Buddha's golden alms bowl imprison Yi Xian, who wielded the heaven-destroying halberd? Moreover, Guanyin of the South Sea and Liu Bai didn't know that Yi Xian's cultivation had skyrocketed after devouring Yu Ding's cultivation. Not only had the defying immortal formation been greatly enhanced, but he could also tap into much of the heaven-destroying halberd's power. The Buddha's golden alms bowl naturally couldn't trap him. Yi Xian's thoughts were simple. He didn't want to engage in a prolonged battle with the two. All he wanted was to break through to the Daluo Jingxian as quickly as possible. He'd just devoured Yu Ding's cultivation and needed time to refine it. After him, Guang Qingzi was enraged by Yu Ding's death. However, Guanyin of the South Sea's expression was gloomy. She slowly shook her head and said, "I don't know what spell he used, but his aura has completely dissipated. Even the Buddha's golden alms bowl can't illuminate his location. Unless the Buddha personally intervenes, the two of us won't be able to subdue him." Guang Qingzi's expression turned cold when he heard Guanyin of the South Sea's words. However, he couldn't say anything. In the end, he could only sigh helplessly. Every sound of wind and crane was jittery. The East Emperor had rebelled against the Celestial Court. The Chan sect and Jie sect were like fire and water. The Daluo Jinxian's pursuit of the East Emperor had become a hot topic in the three realms. 500 years passed in the blink of an eye. The East Emperor, Yi Xian, seemed to have evaporated. He never appeared before the eyes of the three realms again. Even though the golden immortals of the Chan sect searched the world for Yi Xian's whereabouts, they couldn't do anything about it. The 33rd layer of the Celestial Court. The Jade Emperor sat on his throne while the immortals stood on both sides. The shattered Lingxiao Palace was once again rebuilt. However, after the battle 500 years ago, the so-called Celestial Court had become more complicated. The Chan sect and Jie sect were in endless conflict. The Jade Emperor was no longer cowardly. He even used the investiture of the gods to restrain the Celestial Court's immortals. This made the Celestial Court seem more stable. However, after 500 years, the Jade Emperor was in an extremely bad mood. He tossed and turned restlessly, unable to sleep. Even when he was cultivating, Yi Xian's voice and appearance would appear in his mind. Yi Xian was not dead. This was the Jade Emperor's biggest worry. He was terrified and scared. This was because the Jade Emperor knew that if Yi Xian stepped into the Daluo realm, he would be the first person Yi Xian would kill. Immortal Yu Ding died tragically in the hands of Yi Xian. Even though the Chan sect concealed this news, the Jade Emperor still knew about it. This made the Jade Emperor even more upset. He even sent the army of the Celestial Court to the Earth Immortal Realm to search for Yi Xian's whereabouts. The Xiantian Mirror and the Heavenly Mirror were the two most precious treasures of the Celestial Court. He hoped to find Yi Xian's whereabouts. However, to the Jade Emperor's disappointment, even with the two heavenly mirrors in hand, he couldn't find Yi Xian's whereabouts. What annoyed him the most was that the Jie sect had already stood against him. They even disobeyed him in the Celestial Court. Moreover, Shen Gongbao carried the celestial slashing sword to the court every day. This gave him a lot of pressure. The Jade Emperor wanted to kill the Jie sect immortals. However, Tongtian's deterrence was too terrifying. He didn't dare to make any moves. However, as the master of the three realms, the Jie sect immortals couldn't cause any trouble. In the past 500 years, all the Jie sect immortals were looking for Yi Xian's whereabouts. Unfortunately, like the Jade Emperor, they couldn't find Yi Xian's whereabouts. However, Shen Gongbao and the others were very happy. This was because they believed that when Yi Xian appeared again, he would have stepped into the Daluo realm. At that time, it would be the time for the Jie sect to prosper. Although this long wait might take tens of thousands of years, it wasn't a long time for the immortals. They could afford to wait. Chapter 403. The Earth Immortal Realm was divided into 4 states: Dongsheng Divine Land, Aparagodania State, Nanzambu State, and Utarakuru State. Zhen Yuanzi was the ancestor of the Earth Immortals. Those from Dongxing respected the heavens and the earth. They were at peace, and respected the three pure ones. Those from Aparagodania were neither greedy nor murderous. They nurtured their qi and hid their spirit. Although they were supreme, everyone had a long lifespan. They worshipped Buddha wholeheartedly. Taoist Jie-in and Taoist Juanti were respected. Those from Nanzambu were greedy. They killed and fought. They were more chaotic. Taoism, Buddhism, demonic sect, and other sects were involved in many disputes. Those from Uttarakuru were fond of killing. However, they were clumsy in nature and did not do much. They were barren, and there were many giant beasts from the prehistoric era. They respected Nuwa. Among the 4 states of the earth god realm, the most chaotic were Nanzambu and Uttarakuru. Uttarakuru was the most vicious. Uttarakuru was barren, and there were many ancient barren mountains. They were also filled with prehistoric beasts. There were also Tongtian great demons, who ruled over the mountains. They were not controlled by the heavens and earth. Regardless of whether one was a mortal or an immortal cultivator, one's life was always in danger in Uttarakuru. Even immortals rarely came to Uttarakuru. That was because the Tongtian demon king was too terrifying. The prehistoric beasts were even more ferocious. One wrong step and one's soul would be destroyed. The most important problem was that Uttarakuru was filled with hostility. Its spirit chi was much thinner than the other 3 states. Whether it was cultivation or cultivation resources, it could not be compared to the other 3 states. To put it bluntly, Uttarakuru was a place where demons and giant beasts lived. It was a place filled with bloodshed. Even though Buddhism and Taoism did not spread their teachings in Uttarakuru, one could see the viciousness of Uttarakuru. The world was cold, and snow filled the sky. The biting cold northern wind was like the roar of a ferocious beast. The falling snow covered the sky. This was an extremely barren mountain range. In the snow, the entire mountain range was covered in silver. A stone mansion stood on the peak of the mountain. It was made of ordinary rocks, and only took up 1,000 feet. However, it stood firm in the snow. Rumble! The void trembled and thunder rumbled. In this snowy season, a giant could be seen running through the mountains. With each step of the giant, the nameless mountain range trembled violently. The smell of blood assailed his nostrils, and his saliva dripped down. This giant was an ancient species. It looked like a human, but it lacked spiritual intelligence. It was also known as the Snow Peak Giant. It was a ferocious creature in the North Continent. The heavenly Tao was fair. Although the snow-capped giant was not intelligent, its combat strength was equivalent to a golden immortal. It was also an existence that was not to be trifled with. Countless living beings had become its food. The Snow Peak Giant stepped on the mountain against the wind and snow. Its ferocious aura reverberated in the mountains. However, before the giant beast could step on the mountain peak, the world suddenly froze, and an extremely terrifying thing happened. Bang! With a heaven-shaking explosion, the body collapsed. The celestial light rippled out from the cave, causing the body of the snow-capped giant to collapse as well. It turned into a rain of blood that rained down on the mountains. Rumble! The door of the cave mansion slowly opened, and a slender figure walked out. His face was calm and peaceful, and there was not the slightest bit of smoke or fire around him. Although he did not reveal any aura, at a glance, it was as if this person was the brightest star in the world. Yi Xian was dressed in black, and had a handsome appearance. His jet-black hair hung behind his head, and the cold wind of heaven and earth blew over, causing his hair to flutter in the wind. His clothes also rustled. The sea of clouds was vast, and he looked at it calmly. Yi Xian stood on the peak of the mountain. He was expressionless, and no one knew what he was thinking. However, the celestial light that occasionally flashed in his eyes caused the surrounding void to distort. The power of the laws of heaven and earth actually surrounded him. The heavenly Tao is unpredictable, and it is difficult to ascend to the Daoyuo realm. What are the laws of heaven and earth? What is the true meaning of Daoyuo Jingxian? Yi Xian looked down at the vast sea of clouds, and his voice was slightly puzzled. Time flew by like a shuttle. In 500 years, Yi Xian had already refined Immortal Yuding's Daoyuo immortal power, and he had stepped into the peak of the late stage of the all-heaven golden immortal realm in one fell swoop. He was only one step away from entering the realm of Daluo Jingxian. In fact, in the first 100 years, Yi Xian had completely refined Immortal Yuding's cultivation. Although the Tribulation Transcender technique only refined 30% of Immortal Yuding's cultivation, it was enough for him to enter the late stage of the All-Heaven Golden Immortal Realm, and he could even break through to the Daluo realm. With enough cultivation, Yi Xian could not take this simple step no matter how hard he tried. This was not a problem with his cultivation, but it was related to the laws of heaven and earth. As everyone knew, Daluo Jingxian was beyond the 3 realms, and not in the 5 elements. He could even mobilize the laws of heaven and earth for his own use. He could pick the sun and moon with the raise of his hand, and overturn the galaxy with the flip of his palm. This was also a watershed between him and ordinary immortals. If one wanted to step into the Daluo realm, one could not just break through with enough cultivation. Instead, one had to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth, and find one's own method in Dao. Only then could one advance to the Daluo realm. This was also the reason why there were so many immortals since the creation of the world, but there were not many Daluo Jingxian. If one wanted to be in harmony with heaven and earth, one had to control the laws of heaven and earth. This kind of thing was not as difficult as ascending to the heavens, but it was definitely not that simple. It could be said that both opportunities and comprehension were indispensable. The real obstacle for Yi Xian to step into the Daluo realm was not his cultivation, because he was already at the peak of the All-Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. If he could comprehend the laws of heaven and earth, he could naturally advance to Daluo Jingxian. The heavenly Dao operated, and all things were born. Everything had traces of the Dao. Yi Xian was not arrogant. When he turned into a mortal in the human world, he had already comprehended the trajectory of the laws of heaven and earth. Yi Xian had great confidence that if he wanted to advance to the Daluo realm now, he would definitely be able to step into this realm in less than 100 years. However, Yi Xian did not do so, because this was not the path he wanted to take. To put it bluntly, Daluo Jingxian was no different from other immortals. The truly terrifying thing was that Daluo Jingxian could mobilize the laws of heaven and earth for his own use. He could move mountains, drain seas, pluck stars and seize the moon, and execute extremely terrifying Daluo immortal arts. However, this kind of power did not belong to him, but came from heaven and earth. In other words, Daluo Jingxian was just borrowing the power of heaven and earth. If the heavenly Dao collapsed one day, Daluo Jingxian would be nothing more than a joke. Of course, it was almost impossible for the heavenly Dao to collapse, but Yi Xian sought the Dao to become a sage, and it was the most difficult way to become a sage through strength. If he chose to borrow the power of heaven and earth to become Daluo Jingxian, it would mean that he would be shackled by the heavenly Dao, and this path to becoming a sage through strength would be completely severed. Although Yi Xian wanted to step into the Daluo realm, he would never do something so foolish as to throw away a watermelon for a sesame seed. However, if he did not comprehend the laws of heaven and earth, and borrow the power of heaven and earth, how could he become Daluo Jingxian? An extremely difficult problem was placed in front of Yi Xian. This also made him break out of seclusion, after 500 years of seclusion. At this moment, he was constantly thinking hard to find his own path to the Daluo realm. Chapter 404. It was the fate of all living beings to not be able to transcend under the heavenly Dao. Even the Nuwa of the 3 pure ones who had achieved sainthood through virtue was no exception. What Yi Xian wanted was for the heavens and earth to be destroyed while he was immortal, for all living things to die while he was immortal. His only path was to use his strength to prove his Dao, truly transcend this world, and become the saint of all saints. Now, Yi Xian had 2 choices. One was to condense the laws of the world like the other grand heavenly immortals, and from then on, he would submit to the heavenly Dao and borrow the power of the world for his own use. The second path was to walk on his own path, and step into the grand heavenly immortal realm with his own strength, without borrowing the power of the world. This was also the initial step to prove his Dao through strength. Without a doubt, Yi Xian was very ambitious. He would absolutely not choose the first path, and now he could only walk on the second path. However, Yi Xian was very puzzled. If he did not condense the laws of the world, and was unable to borrow the power of the world, how would he step into the Daluo Jingxian realm? The cold wind whistled through the world while the vast sea of clouds rose. Yi Xian stood on the mountain peak with his hands behind his back. His eyes were filled with puzzlement when he opened and closed them. Clearly, he was troubled by this problem. The stars moved and the sun and moon alternated. After half a year, Yi Xian seemed to have transformed into a rock that stood towering and unmoving. Snow drifted through the world and covered his body, and not a single bit of aura seeped out from his body, breaking through all techniques through strength. Suddenly, a light flashed through Yi Xian's mind. The snowflakes that covered his body rolled down and revealed his figure once again. When his eyes opened and closed, there was even a dazzling light that flashed past. Condensing the laws of the world and borrowing the power of the world are all forms of strength. If I can continuously devour the Daluo Jingxian's cultivation, I can step into the grand heavenly immortal realm with my own strength. Yi Xian's eyes shone, and his voice was slightly trembling. Cultivating myself, plundering the world, and suppressing the laws of the world for my own use. This is the path I should take. This is also the most basic thing to prove one's Dao through strength. Yi Xian muttered to himself as a wisp of redness flashed past his face. Yi Xian was right. In fact, the Daluo Jingxian realm was not that complicated. Everyone who stepped into the Daluo Jingxian first had to comprehend the heavenly Dao, then integrate themselves into the world and condense the so-called laws of the world. Naturally, they could borrow the power of the world. This to the Daluo Jingxian. This was to cultivate the laws of the world. To the point to the Daluo Jingxian realm. To the by himself. B. Even though he was also a Daluo Jingxian, Yi Xian was an existence that could fight against 10 people at once. If he had the inverse immortal formation diagram and the heaven-punishing halberd in hand, he might not be invincible in the Daluo realm. But he would definitely have few opponents. The path ahead was clear, but Yi Xian's smile gradually disappeared, and his brows furrowed slightly. He was only at the peak of the all-heaven realm. Although he had the inverse immortal formation diagram and the heaven-punishing halberd in hand, it was indeed very difficult for him to kill a Daluo Jingxian. The reason Yi Xian was able to kill Taoist Master Yu Ding was because he was already injured. Moreover, Yi Xian had spent 10 years in closed-door cultivation to kill him in one strike. Regardless of whether it was the right time, place, or people, Yi Xian had already occupied all of them. That was why he was able to use the Calamity Immortal technique to devour the cultivation Dao fruit of the Jade Cauldron. However, if he wanted to continue devouring the Golden Immortals, it would obviously be a huge problem. Suddenly, Yi Xian's brows relaxed, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Since the path ahead was clear, he could only move forward bravely. There was no other choice. Thinking too much would only annoy himself. Yi Xian's thoughts turned, and he looked at the vast and boundless North Continent. When he opened and closed his eyes, a gloomy killing intent flashed past. The North Continent is occupied by demons and killing. There are many Tongtian demon kings and primordial mutants. There are also too many people who are not weaker than Daluo Jingxian. If I can devour them, I can naturally enter the Daluo realm. Rumble. The golden light of all heaven dissipated, and the demonic light of the Tongtian rose. At that moment, Yi Xian changed his appearance and turned into Kong Li's appearance again. Behind him, a 5-colored divine light rose, and he rode a cloud towards the vast land of the north. Before entering the Daluo realm, Yi Xian would never expose himself. Since he no longer had the title of the East Pole Emperor, he would transform into the Tongtian Great Demon of the North Continent. He would use the North Continent as his foundation to completely stir up the world. Tongtian rich, demons were entrenched, and demons ran rampant. The Tongtian Ridge covered an area of tens of thousands of kilometers. It was a place with barren mountains and unruly rivers, and it was also a notorious place in the North Continent. Danger lurked in every corner of the 100,000 mountains. Millions of kilometers of barren swamps killed people without leaving a trace. 3 million kilometers of the Kuishui River was turbulent, and there was also the towering ancient Tongtian Ridge. It was filled with unimaginable dangers. Great demons entrenched themselves, demons roared, and primordial mutants ran rampant. There were countless lesser demons, and the Demon King ruled the mountains. This made the Tongtian Ridge a place of great danger. Not to mention mortal cultivators. Even immortals had to take a detour when they passed by this place. This was because if they took a wrong step, it was very likely that they would end up with their souls scattered. Whoosh whoosh, the Kuishui River was dark and turbid, and it rumbled and surged according to an unchanging law. However, in the dark and turbid river, one could see piles of white bones floating in the water from time to time, causing one to feel a great chill in one's heart. The 3 million kilometers of the Kuishui River surrounded the entire Tongtian Ridge. It was also a place that one had to pass to enter the Tongtian Ridge. After crossing the Kuishui River, one would enter the heart of the Tongtian Ridge completely, even if it was the millions of kilometers of barren swamps that killed people without leaving a trace. The Tongtian Ridge spanned tens of thousands of kilometers. The Tongtian Great Demons were divided into 9, and they were known as the 9 Tongtian Demon Kings. They were notorious in the North Continent, and they were the overlords of the North Continent. Under the 9 Tongtian Demon Kings, there were countless great demons entrenched in various places. They refused to be controlled by heaven and earth, and they did not believe in Buddhism or Taoism. They were all ferocious people. In front of the Kuishui River, the 5-colored divine light shone faintly. Yi Xian stood by the river, his face expressionless. However, the demonic light around him was strange and sinister. Even if ordinary demons knew that a stranger had come to the Tongtian Ridge, they would not dare to casually go forward to test him. Roar! Prehistoric beasts roared angrily in the mountains, and countless demons howled and roared. The Tongtian demonic fog filled the sky, and a foul stench filled the air. This made Yi Xian frown slightly, and a look of disgust flashed in his eyes. It was not that Yi Xian hated the demons in the Tongtian Ridge, but that he hated such a vile and dirty environment. Although this sky-piercing ridge was said to be barren, it was extremely dirty and smelly. Yi Xian really didn't know how these sky-piercing great demons could endure such an environment. Or could it be that these sky-piercing great demons had created such an environment that outsiders would feel fear when they saw it? Although Yi Xian was also a ferocious and evil person, he had high standards for the environment he lived in. He could kill millions of people, but he would not let any blood stain his body. Chapter 405. The waves of the Kuishui River are torrential. Demons live in the Tongtian Ridge. If you ask where the boat is going, the end of the 9 underworlds is home. The demonic wind blew. The song was loud and clear. In the Kuishui River, there was a small boat going against the wind and waves towards Yi Xian. On the boat, there was a man singing loudly, but his body was surrounded by demonic light, giving people an extremely gloomy feeling. Where did you come from? Where do you want to go? The boat bobbed up and down in the Kuishui River. The man's face was pale, and his eyes were protruding. He was like a ghost that lived in the mortal world, causing people to tremble. At this moment, he was asking Yi Xian a question with a strange smile. Unfortunately, Yi Xian wasn't some kind man or woman, nor would he be afraid because of the appearance of this cowherd. He had his own reasons for coming to Sky-Piercing Mountain. I heard that the Tongtian Ridge has 9 demon kings, and all of them have great abilities. This time, I came to pay a visit to the 9 demon kings. Yi Xian stood by the river, and his voice was calm and peaceful. Hee. Suoweng smiled slyly and said, "Fellow Taoist, you should know that you can only enter and not leave Tongtian Ridge. If fellow Taoist has really considered it, I can give fellow Taoist a ride. I wonder if fellow Taoist dares to board the ship?" Whoosh! The demonic wind blew, and the clouds dispersed. Yi Xian stepped out, and suddenly stood on the boat. This made the man's expression change slightly. He looked deeply at Yi Xian, and then laughed strangely. "You are indeed skilled and bold." A bamboo raft propped up the water, allowing the boat to go against the wind and waves towards the Tongtian Ridge. Along the way, other than the sound of the Kuishui River, the man did not say a word. Only the roars of the demons on both sides of the river gradually quieted down. Have you heard that if you enter the Tongtian Ridge, you will either live or die? I wonder if you will live or die. Suddenly, when the boat stopped in the middle of the long river, the cowherd was no longer rowing the boat. Demonic light rippled around his body, and the gaze he looked at Yi Xian with was even more sinister and cold. If I were you, I wouldn't talk so much nonsense. I would be a quiet boatman. Only then can I preserve my life. Yi Xian's expression did not change. His voice was calm and indifferent. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Suowing held his breath and then chuckled. Fellow Taoist, you're covered in 5-colored divine light, so you should be from the Peacock clan. Unfortunately, you shouldn't have come to the Tongtian Ridge. I gave you a chance just now, but you didn't cherish it. Today, I can only bury you in the Sunflower Water River. Plop. Suddenly, Suowing turned into a black light and directly jumped into the Sunflower Water River. The originally calm Sunflower Water River actually stirred up huge waves at this moment and violently smashed towards Yi Xian. The Sunflower Water River was not a simple river. Its water could erase one's soul and destroy one's physical body. Even if an immortal fell into the Sunflower Water River, he would definitely die. Insignificant skill, Yi Xian said contemptuously. He did not seem to do anything, but he just blasted out a demonic art. The demonic light that filled the sky swept across the sky for millions of miles and directly suppressed the Sunflower Water River. With a thought, heaven and earth would split, and all living things would die. Yi Xian was a peak golden immortal in the all-heaven heaven, only a step away from stepping into the Daluo realm. He also had many forbidden arts, so his combat strength was unimaginably terrifying. The Sunflower Water River could not get close to him. Even if it drowned his body, it would not cause him any harm. Good boy, you do have some skills. Suddenly, a gloomy roar reverberated between heaven and earth. The Sunflower Water River stirred up huge waves again, and a 30,000-mile-long flood dragon's body churned in the Sunflower Water River. The terrifying demonic light rippled in all directions, causing the Sunflower Water River to become even more violent. If I'm not wrong, you're the Torch Dragon King of the 9 Demon Kings of the Tongtian Ridge, right? Yi Xian stood on the boat, and his voice was calm. In the Sunflower Water River, the Torch Dragon King was overturning the rivers and seas, and his wild laughter was also heard at this moment. Boy, it seems like you've already inquired about the situation of my Tongtian Ridge. I don't care why you came to the Tongtian Ridge, but today, you won't be able to leave. Roar. The dragon's roar shook the sky, and the demonic light rippled. A terrifying demonic light spewed out from the Torch Dragon King's mouth, forming a demonic art that could destroy mountains and rivers. It brought along the Sunflower Water River, that was 100,000 feet long, and blasted towards Yi Xian. Are you courting death? Yi Xian narrowed his eyes, and his voice was cold and ruthless. Bang! Yi Xian took a step forward, and the boat under his feet exploded. The 5-colored divine light filled the sky, and the Tongtian demonic chi soared into the sky. When Yi Xian struck out with his palm, the Sunflower Water River, that was 1,000,000 miles long, collapsed in all directions. The 5-colored divine light that could explode all things sent the Torch Dragon King flying. A little demonic dragon dares to be impudent in front of me? The Heavenly Spirit 36 transformations, and the Earthly Fiend 72 transformations, were Taoist supreme divine abilities that Yi Xian had already cultivated to the point of perfection. Coupled with the Immortal Scripture's forbidden secret technique, he had completely evolved the innate divine ability of the 5-colored Peacock clan. Rumble! Yi Xian's entire body was glowing. This was the 5-colored divine light that was unique to the Peacock clan. Although it was only simulated by him using Taoist divine abilities, under the effect of his terrifying cultivation, it was impossible to tell whether it was real or fake. Transform! The 5-colored divine light dissipated, and Yi Xian disappeared. However, he had transformed into a 5-colored peacock that was 50,000 miles long. His fierce eyes, colorful feathers, and the 5-colored divine light that shook the heavens and earth made people not dare to look straight at him. Rumble! Two sharp claws shattered the mountains and rivers. Before the torch dragon king fell into the sunflower water river, the five-colored peacock that Yi Xian had transformed into had already grabbed his body. The indestructible sharp claws tore apart the scales and flesh of the torch dragon king, causing him to let out an extremely shrill scream. Roar! The divine dragon swung its tail, and its angry roar shook the sky. After suffering Yi Xian's terrifying suppression, the torch dragon king's ferocity completely erupted. He opened his bloody mouth that emitted a foul stench, and bit at Yi Xian violently. Bang! Suddenly, Yi Xian transformed again, directly transforming into a towering giant. His palms were like two ancient demonic mountains that violently smashed down on the torch dragon king's head. Bang! 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 Yi Xian was brutal and ruthless. His punch was like a falling star, directly hitting the dragon head until it was drenched in demon blood. When he reached out with his palm, he grabbed the dragon horn and tore it violently, breaking the dragon horn. This also caused the torch dragon king to scream and wail in pain. His eyes were filled with extreme fear. Bang! 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 His fists were like mountains that fell with a loud bang. Yi Xian seemed to have transformed into a primordial giant. Every punch that landed sent the torch dragon king flying high into the sky. He used his fists and legs, and the demonic light Tongtian also damaged the torch dragon king's 30,000-mile-long body. Stop it! Suddenly, when Yi Xian attacked again, the torch dragon king's body changed and suddenly turned into the previous cowherd. However, he was covered in blood, and one of his two dragon horns was broken. The way he looked at Yi Xian was even more horrified. Buzz! His palm and fingers reached out, plucking the stars and grabbing the moon. When Yi Xian's palm reached out, the world was distorted. A powerful suction force acted on the torch dragon king's body, sucking the great demon into his palm. Chapter 406. Crack! Yi Xian turned into his human form and gripped Yi Xian's neck with his jade-like palm. It was as though he was grabbing a chick, imprisoning torch dragon king in midair. At the same time, a sinister killing intent flashed across Yi Xian's eyes. Fellow Taoist, please spare my life. Being held in the hands of Yi Xian, and being able to sense the terrifying killing intent around Yi Xian, Torch Dragon King panicked, as he begged for mercy hurriedly. Where was the arrogance from before? Puny little demon dragon, how dare you act so insolently before me? Don't you know how the word death is written? Yi Xian snarled out menacingly as his palm tightened slightly. It was as though he was about to kill Torch Dragon King in the next moment. It's a misunderstanding. Fellow Taoist, please calm down. Torch Dragon King spoke with difficulty as he forced out a smile. However, his smile right now was uglier than a crying face, as his eyes were filled with extreme fear. Torch Dragon King was one of the 9 great demons of the Tongtian Ridge to begin with. This 3 million miles long Kuishui River was his battlefield. When Yi Xian arrived at the Tongtian Ridge, the 9 great demon kings naturally sensed Yi Xian's aura. This was also the reason why they waited here, hoping to make Yi Xian back off. After all, the 5-colored peacock race was extremely rare. Furthermore, they had a bloodline connection with Mahamyuri. Even the Tongtian Ridge could not afford to offend them. The 9 great demon kings had no intention of harming Yi Xian in the first place. They merely wanted to teach him a lesson before letting him off on purpose. This could be considered as a perfect ending. However, Torch Dragon King had not expected that Yi Xian's cultivation state was way too horrifying. He was no match for him at all. Not only did he fail to force the other party to retreat, he was even imprisoned in the hands of the other party. If he were to die here, it would be an injustice. Isn't it a pleasure to have friends coming from afar? Fellow Taoist, please calm down your anger and come to Tongtian Ridge for a chat. Suddenly, a rough voice came from the Tongtian Ridge. Demonic light rose from the Tongtian Ridge. Clearly, the other demon kings had also noticed this scene. They knew that Yi Xian was an extremely difficult person to deal with, so they could only welcome him. Hearing the words that came from Sky-Piercing Ridge, the corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled into a cold smile, as he casually released the Torch Dragon King. It was obvious that he already knew that the Demon King in Sky-Piercing Ridge was spying on him, and that he was mercilessly suppressing the Torch Dragon King to establish his might. Fellow Taoist, please. After experiencing Yi Xian's power, Torch Dragon King put away his arrogance, and a fawning expression appeared on his face. He even personally cast a demonic art to spread out a demonic light sky bridge that went straight into the heart of the Tongtian Ridge. After stepping onto the demonic light sky bridge, Yi Xian and Torch Dragon King walked side by side. Along the way, Yi Xian had a panoramic view of the entire Tongtian Ridge. The 100,000 mountains were vast and majestic. Demons were hidden in desolate swamps that spanned millions of miles. Ancient mountains rose from the ground. From time to time, groups of demons could be seen running in the mountains. There were also primordial mutants fighting each other. This also made Yi Xian nod slowly. He could not help but exclaim in admiration in his heart. The Tongtian Ridge was indeed an extremely vicious place. If an ordinary golden immortal of the All-Heaven came here, he would definitely not be able to return. They quickly traversed millions of miles. A huge mountain that pierced the sky was faintly discernible in the clouds that covered the sky. This huge mountain connected heaven and earth. The hard mountain was engraved with the words Tongtian Ridge. Haha. Fellow Taoist, you are from the five-colored peacock clan. In the heaven, earth and man realms, you are a figure that cannot be underestimated. Today, you have come to the Tongtian Ridge as a guest. We welcome you with open arms. When Yi Xian arrived at the Tongtian Ridge on a cloud, a burst of wild laughter rang out. 8 demonic lights soared into the sky. When the demonic lights dissipated, 8 great demons of different forms appeared in front of Yi Xian's eyes. The person in the lead looked like a human. However, blood mist lingered around his body. His eyes were as red as blood, and his body was emitting an extremely strange aura. Obviously, this person was the leader of the 9 demon kings of the Tongtian Ridge, the Blood God King. Legend had it that this person was born from the filthy chi of heaven and earth. It was also said that this person was closely related to the Nether Blood Sea. His origin was extremely mysterious, and no one knew what his cultivation level was. The other 7, the Lionheart King, the White Deer King, the Yaksha King, the Ox King, the Qingqiu King, the Rock King, and the Fire Demon King, were all notorious figures in the North Continent. None of these 7 great demons were ordinary people. They were all golden immortals of the great heaven. Among them, the Qingqiu King was a beautiful and enchanting girl. Her bare skin was as clear as jade, and her seductive eyes were alluring. The remaining 6 demon kings were of different forms. They all had some characteristics of their original bodies, but each of them had an extremely strong murderous aura. It was obvious that the living beings who had died in their hands were unimaginable. Yi Xian was not moved by the presence of the 9 great demon kings. However, when he saw the Blood God King, his originally calm face was slightly stunned. A hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. Daoyuo Jingxian? The Blood God King's cultivation level was actually that of Daoyuo Jingxian? Yi Xian growled in his heart. He had never thought that there would be a demon king of Daoyuo Jingxian's level hidden in the Tongtian Ridge. Although the Blood God King was trying his best to hide his aura, Yi Xian had fought with Daoyuo Jingxian countless times. He would never be wrong. This was because the laws of heaven and earth around the Blood God King were extremely active. This was also a sign that he had stepped into the Zenith Heaven realm. Of course, the Blood God King was only at the first heaven of the Zenith Heaven. Even compared to perfected Yu Ding, he was much weaker. It was obvious that this person had just stepped into the Zenith Heaven realm. Interesting, it was indeed interesting. As the saying goes, one can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it by chance. Yi Xian's main purpose in coming to the Tongtian Ridge this time was to subdue the entire Tongtian Ridge. Then, he would lead the endless demons to sweep across the North Continent and completely control the North Continent. If he controlled the entire North Continent, bloody slaughter would naturally be unavoidable. However, this was the result that Yi Xian wanted. As the saying goes, no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. When the endless demons died, he could use the Tribulation Transcender technique to devour the cultivation of the dead creatures. Many a little makes a mickle. This was also Yi Xian's goal. However, if he could devour a few more Daluo Jingxian, his cultivation level would break through the sky, and he would break into the zenith heaven realm on his own. This would be the best thing for Yi Xian. Yi Xian faintly had a premonition that the more cultivation he devoured, the more solid his foundation would be. When he broke through to the golden immortal stage, an extremely terrifying transformation would occur, and it would allow him to obtain an extremely terrifying increase in strength. He wouldn't dare to say that he was invincible among the Daluo Jingxian, but he was definitely an existence that could take on 10 people at once. At this moment, Yi Xian looked at the Blood God King, as if he was looking at a rare treasure. There was even a hint of desire in his eyes. The Blood God King was very sensitive. How could he not feel Yi Xian's greedy gaze? However, he frowned slightly. He couldn't understand why this person was looking at him with such a fervent gaze. Although he couldn't understand Yi Xian's purpose in coming to the Tongtian Ridge, the Blood God King didn't think about it anymore. He just wanted to send this person away as soon as possible. After all, he couldn't afford to offend the five-colored peacock clan. As for what Yi Xian wanted to do, it was impossible because the Blood God King was very confident in himself. He had stepped into the zenith heaven realm for 10,000 years. The other party's aura was obviously that of an all-heaven golden immortal. How could he be his opponent? Chapter 407. I have heard that there are 9 demon kings in the Tongtian Ridge. Now that I have seen them today, they do live up to their reputation. Yi Xian bowed. His attitude was neither arrogant nor humble, and the 9 demon kings could not see through Yi Xian's facade. My friend, please. Blood God King invited Yi Xian with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Dong dong dong. The demon drums beat, and the drum beats came like a storm. The demons on the Tongtian Ridge roared, and there were even demons waving the blood flag and shouting. Obviously, this was the welcoming ceremony of the Tongtian Ridge to Yi Xian. The demon clouds dispersed and fell. Under the guidance of the 9 Tongtian demon kings, Yi Xian entered the Tongtian Ridge. In the center of the mountain, there was a huge cave. Obviously, this was the place where the 9 demon kings were entrenched. The smell of blood assailed his nostrils, and there were bones everywhere. Yi Xian walked all the way, and even the soil under his feet was red. The thick smell of blood reverberated in the mountains, and from time to time, he could see a large number of rotting corpses lying everywhere, emitting a foul smell. Barren mountains and unruly rivers. The environment was dirty, and everywhere was filled with blood and killing. This was the impression that the Tongtian Ridge gave to Yi Xian. My friend, this is the 9 demon cave, and also the dojo of us 9 brothers. Today, my friend has graced the Tongtian Ridge with your presence. My brothers and I shall drink to our heart's content. In front of the center of the mountain, there was a huge cave that emitted an extremely strong smell of blood. Blood God King invited Yi Xian in with a smile. Yi Xian's expression was calm as he strolled into the cave. The 9 demon kings looked at each other, and then entered side by side with Yi Xian. Dried bones were strewn all over the place. Wine jars were strewn all over the place, and countless demons were frolicking in the cave abode. There were even mortal cultivators who were tied to the stone pillars, and were being gnawed by the demons, causing them to wail in despair and misery. The sounds of flesh being chewed, the excited roars of demons, and the despairing screams of humans could be heard. Dried bones could be seen everywhere on the ground, and a pool of blood was steaming in the cave. The extremely strong smell of blood was coming from the blood pool. Plop. Immortal was badly mutilated, and had long lost all signs of life. He was also thrown into the blood pool by a demon. Instantly, his flesh and blood were devoured, causing large amounts of bubbles to rise from the blood pool as a ghastly white skeleton appeared. When this scene entered Yi Xian's eyes, it caused him to frown. A trace of coldness flashed through his eyes. Yi Xian was a person who was indifferent to killing. His methods were even more ruthless and cruel. However, he was still a human after all. The scene of people eating humans made him feel a little disgusted. Human blood. Yi Xian was sure that this pool of blood was all gathered from human blood. To be able to gather such a huge pool of blood, at least 1,000,000 humans had died in this 9-demon cave. The king is back, the king is back. The demons cheered and roared, causing Blood God King to laugh and say, "Children, today our Tongtian mountain range has an important guest. Quickly go and bring the best blood wine, and tell those girls to come and dance for the guest." "Yes, king." The demons laughed and were extremely lively. They all followed Blood God King's orders. "Daoist friend, please sit." Blood God King gestured for Yi Xian to sit. Soon, a small demon brought over a stone chair and placed a large amount of flesh and blood spirit fruits in front of him. Clearly, this was the Tongtian mountain range's way of treating guests. The 9 demon kings took their seats one after another. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on one side. When he looked at the flesh and blood on the table, a cold light flashed through his eyes. This was because this was the flesh and blood of a human. It was obvious that it had just been cut off from a human. "My friend, this meat is of the highest quality. It was taken from a female cultivator at the tribulation level. Even though it can't help you increase your cultivation level, the meat is fresh and tender. It's of the highest quality," Blood God King introduced with a smile. Unfortunately, Yi Xian didn't move. When he waved his hand, the flesh in front of him instantly vaporized. Even the spirit fruits on the table didn't make Yi Xian look at them, because he felt disgusted. Looking at Yi Xian's actions, the 9 Taoist kings' expressions changed slightly. Blood God King's eyes turned and he said with a fake smile, "Taoist friend, it seems that you are an immortal and have no interest in flesh and blood. I was too impulsive." Yi Xian was as still as a mountain. His voice was indifferent. "We, the 5-colored peacock clan, collect the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and absorb the essence of the sun and moon. We are not contaminated by flesh and blood. I appreciate Blood God King's kindness." "Haha. Yes. Taoist friend, you are a 5-colored peacock. How can you compare to us demons? Please forgive us for not treating you well today." Blood God King laughed wildly, but a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Clang, clang, the drums rang out, and the singers entered the cave. More than 10 seductive women entered the cave. Their delicate waists kept swaying, and their eyes were filled with great charm. Their exposed skin revealed a large amount of spring, as if they were not wearing any clothes. Clang, 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 clang. The air froze as demonic light shot out. Without waiting for Snake Concubine to approach Yi Xian, Snake Concubine directly shattered into a bloody mist, causing her soul to scatter. This also caused the other snake concubines to scream in shock, causing the faces of the 9 demon kings to turn ashen. But they didn't say anything. Clang, 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 clang. Su Qingzhu filled Yi Xian's cup with blood wine and drank it first. However, this blood wine was brewed from human blood, so it made her feel like vomiting. However, she forcefully suppressed it. Chapter 408. Looking at the woman in front of him, Yi Xian slowly shook his head and said in a low voice, "Although you're an immortal, you've been reduced to a demon king's plaything. It's indeed a sad thing." As Yi Xian's words fell, the entire 9 demon cave fell silent. The 9 demon kings narrowed their eyes and looked at Yi Xian with faint dissatisfaction. Su Qingzhu looked at Yi Xian in a daze, as if Yi Xian's words had reminded her of the past. She muttered bitterly, "You demon kings all have great magical powers. Even though I've cultivated to become an immortal for 10,000 years, I'm just an ant in your eyes. Why do you have to ridicule me, your majesty? Death isn't scary. What's scary is living a life worse than death. If you're willing, I can send you on your way. It can be considered as doing a good deed." As a fellow human, although Yi Xian was cruel and fierce, he could not bear to see a human woman being violated and ravaged by demons. He could also be kind and save this woman, but so what if he saved her? It would only make her suffer more. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Su Qingzhu's expression froze. Her originally withered and lifeless eyes gradually focused. She looked at Yi Xian with an extremely pleading expression. Kill me, please kill me." Su Qingzhu's eyes became misty. She suddenly grabbed Yi Xian's arm and begged bitterly, as if she was grasping at the last straw. Being defiled by demons and being ravaged all day long had long made Su Qingzhu lose the thought of living. If Yi Xian could be kind and kill her, it would undoubtedly be a relief for her. The strong are as heavy as a mountain, the weak crawl like an ant. This world is so cruel. Don't step into the immortal Tao in your next life. Be at ease and be immortal, Yi Xian said calmly. With a wave of his hand, Su Qingzhu was annihilated inch by inch, turning into a wisp of ash that dissipated in the void. Bang! Suddenly, the stone table in front of the Blood God King exploded. The Blood God King's expression was ashen and sinister. His gaze towards Yi Xian was filled with an extremely terrifying killing intent, but he still endured it. Fellow Taoist, my Tongtian mountain range has always treated you with respect, but you first killed Sheiji, and then killed this king's concubine. You have completely disregarded this king. Fellow Taoist, you have gone overboard. The blood god scolded harshly. If it weren't for the fact that the other party was a 5-colored peacock, he would have already killed him. Why would he still entertain Yi Xian? Fellow Taoist, as the saying goes, those who walk different paths should not work together. The Tongtian Ridge has already treated you with courtesy. Since you do not know what's good for you, please leave. Torch Dragon King said coldly. At this time, the 9 demon kings looked unfriendly, but they didn't want to attack Yi Xian, because they knew that they couldn't offend the 5-colored peacock clan. If they killed Yi Xian today, and provoked the mighty figures of the peacock clan, they would definitely destroy the entire Tongtian Ridge. Fellow Taoist, although we don't know why you came to the Tongtian Ridge, as the saying goes, the more friends you have, the more options you have. If you have a favor to ask of us, you can speak frankly. We are also willing to be friends with you. However, if you are here to cause trouble, the Tongtian Ridge is not a pushover. King Qingqiu smiled, but his words were extremely cold. The Tongtian demon kings looked around, and the atmosphere gradually became tense. Many demons stared at Yi Xian, obviously ready to attack if there was a disagreement. Unfortunately, Yi Xian was calm and unperturbed. It was as if he treated the 9 demon kings as air. At this moment, he slowly stood up and his calm voice sounded out within the cave. I am a very reasonable person and I don't like killing. This time, I came to the Tongtian Ridge in hopes of making friends with all of you. I also want to become one of the demon kings of the Tongtian Ridge. As Yi Xian finished speaking, the 9 demon kings were stunned and looked at Yi Xian with an extremely strange expression. They didn't expect that Yi Xian was not here to cause trouble, but to want to join the Tongtian Ridge. Fellow Taoist, you must be joking. You are the 5-colored peacock. No matter where you go, even immortals and demons have to give you some face. The Tongtian Ridge is just a barren place in the North Continent. How can you condescend to come here? The Blood God King's hostility dissipated, and his tone became much gentler. Big brother, since fellow Taoist Kong wants to join the Tongtian Ridge, I don't think it's a bad idea. Why don't we let fellow Taoist Kong become the 10th demon king of the Tongtian Ridge? This will also increase the power of the Tongtian Ridge greatly, the Lionheart King suggested. Second brother, what are you talking about? The 5-colored peacock is naturally extraordinary. The Tongtian Ridge is just a place where demons reside. How can we let fellow Taoist Kong condescend to join us? The Torch Dragon King retorted. Fellow Taoist Kong, it is indeed our honor that you want to join the Tongtian Ridge, but all of this needs to be decided by Big Brother. King Qingqiu whispered to Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked calm and didn't say anything. It was as if he didn't hear the argument of the demon kings at all. The Blood God King looked hesitant, and looked at Yi Xian from time to time. Obviously, he didn't know why Yi Xian wanted to join the Tongtian Ridge. Fellow Taoist Kong, my 9 brothers are willing to befriend you, but let's forget about joining the group. After all, fellow Taoist is a 5-colored peacock, and in the future, you will be revered as an ancestor. If you join the sky-piercing ridge, and let fellow Taoists live under this king, it will also damage your reputation. The Blood God King pondered for a long time before rejecting Yi Xian's suggestion. Tisk tsk tsk. Yi Xian slowly shook his head and looked at the Blood God King with an extremely cold gaze. You may be mistaken about one thing. I do want to join the Tongtian Ridge, but I don't want to be below you. What I mean is that from today onwards, the Tongtian Ridge will treat me as the master, and you will all be my subordinates. The Blood God King's expression changed when he heard Yi Xian's words. The aura of the other 8 demon kings fluctuated, and they looked at Yi Xian as if they were looking at a lunatic. Fellow Taoist, do you know what you are talking about? The Blood God King narrowed his eyes and the blood-colored demonic light around him rippled slightly. A violent murderous intent rose in his heart. First heaven of Zenith Heaven. Yi Xian smiled contemptuously. Blood God King, do you think you can defeat me just because you are in the Zenith Heaven realm? Or do you think you can defeat me? Hiss. The Blood God King's expression changed drastically when Yi Xian saw through his cultivation. His eyes froze, and he looked at Yi Xian with an extremely cautious gaze. As the saying went, one would not take on a porcelain job without a diamond. Since Yi Xian dared to come to the Tongtian Ridge and see through his cultivation at a glance, he must have a great trump card. Fellow Taoist, you are just an all-heaven golden immortal. If I want to kill you, it will only take a moment. If not for Mahamayuri, do you think you can walk out of the Tongtian Ridge alive? The Blood God King said sinisterly. Trash like you? Yi Xian smiled. He really smiled, but his smile was extremely cruel. He looked at the Blood God King as if he was looking at a rare treasure. When Yi Xian's cultivation was weak, he would naturally endure. But when his cultivation could crush others, there was no such thing as conspiracy. He would do things simply and crudely. Chapter 409. Even though the 9 great demon kings were by his side, and the Blood God King was also at the first level of the great Luo realm, in Yi Xian's eyes, these people were just a bunch of trash. Only the Blood God King could give him some pressure. He was at the peak of the Zenith Heaven realm, only one step away from the Zenith Heaven realm. Yi Xian was invincible among those in the same realm. The 8 demon kings were just golden immortals of the Zenith Heaven realm. How could they be his match? Moreover, Yi Xian had the immortal defying array diagram, so his real target was Blood God King. As long as he killed him, not only could he suppress the entire Tongtian Ridge for his use, but he could also use the Tribulation Transcender technique to devour Blood God King's cultivation. Yi Xian's principle had always been to cut the crap. Since he had the absolute strength to take down the Tongtian Ridge, there was no need for any schemes. He could just suppress him with force. Fellow Taoist, I'll give you another chance. As long as you leave now, I can let bygones be bygones. However, if you don't know what's good for you, then don't blame me for being ruthless. As a demon king at the first firmament of the Zenith Heaven realm, Blood God King had his own pride. He had already tolerated Yi Xian to the extreme, but the other party was so fearless that it aroused his killing intent. You! Yi Xian hooked his finger at him and said, let me see how capable you are. You're courting death. Rumble! The blood-colored demonic light exploded, and the entire 9 demon cave abode exploded. Countless small demons turned into smoke, which also made Yi Xian and the 9 demon kings appear in the outside world. So what if you're a 5-colored peacock? Blood God King roared ferociously. Brothers, he's bullying us today. If we don't kill him, I'm afraid the entire North Continent will see our Tongtian Ridge as a joke. Everyone kill him together. Little peacock, how dare you come to the Tongtian Ridge to cause trouble? You won't be able to leave today. Torch Dragon King roared fiercely. He had been suppressed by Yi Xian previously, so the anger in his heart finally erupted at this moment. Kill. The 8 demon monarchs were all golden immortals of the great heaven, and each of them was a ferocious demon. The demon light emitted by the Tongtian spread out in all directions, and all kinds of demon spells were thrown at Yi Xian. You guys are really courting death. Yi Xian sneered coldly. 5-colored divine lights shot up into the sky. Tongtian demonic lights covered 1,000,000 miles of the sky, causing strong gales to howl in this area. Muffled sounds of rolling thunder could be heard. Scram! The 5-colored divine light could wipe out all living things, and had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Although Yi Xian was only imitating the five-colored divine light, his cultivation was extremely terrifying. How could the so-called 8 great demon kings be his match? Bang bang bang. Mountains collapsed, and the world was distorted. Wherever the five-colored divine light passed, mountains and rivers were destroyed, and the world was shattered. The 8 demon kings were bathed in blood, and their battered bodies fell into the distance. You can't even withstand a single blow. Yi Xian laughed in disdain. There wasn't the slightest ripple around his body, but it caused the expression of the Blood God King to greatly change. His gaze towards Yi Xian was filled with extreme fear. How is this possible? Blood God King growled in shock. He could not believe what he saw. He could clearly feel that Yi Xian was only an golden immortal of the great heaven. But how could his 8 brothers be injured so badly in an instant? Blood God King did not understand, and did not dare to think about it. After all, he had been in the first heaven of all heaven for 10,000 years. However, even if he faced 8 golden celestials of all heaven, he did not dare to say that he could instantly injure them. Unfortunately, Blood God King did not know that Yi Xian was no ordinary golden immortal of the great heaven. Back in the battle at the celestial court, he had faced 4 Daluo Jingxian. Which one of them was not an earth-shattering figure? Although Yi Xian relied on the immortal defying formation to fight against the 4 Daluo Jingxian, it also proved that his combat strength could not be measured by the golden immortal of the great heaven. Moreover, the most important problem was that Yi Xian had refined the Dao fruit of Immortal Yuding's cultivation. He was now in an extremely strange state. Although he looked like an golden immortal of the great heaven, his combat strength was equivalent to an ordinary Daluo Jingxian of the great heaven. Puff! Puff! The 8 demon kings flew back, but all of them had expressions of extreme fear. Blood couldn't stop flowing out from the corners of their mouths, and their gazes towards Yi Xian were filled with extreme fear. Big brother, this 5-colored peacock is strange. Torch Dragon King's body cracked, and his voice trembled. All of you stand down. Blood God King tried his best to calm down after the shock. The blood-colored demonic light around him was extremely blazing, and it stirred up the wind and clouds. It also caused a terrifying demonic wind to blow across the Tongtian Ridge. Tisk tsk tsk. Yi Xian was fearless, and his voice was cold and vicious. First heaven of the great heaven? Unfortunately you met me. From today onwards, there will be no more Blood God King in the Tongtian Ridge, and I will be the ruler of the Tongtian Ridge. You're dreaming, you brat. Die for me. Blood God King roared, and the Tongtian demonic technique was unleashed, blasting toward Yi Xian violently. Reverse. Starlight dazzled, and demonic fog covered the sky. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes, and the immortal defying formation diagram appeared, directly sealing this part of the world, including him and Blood God King, so that the 8 demon kings could not see the scene of their battle. Rumble! Heaven and earth shook, and there were explosions in all directions. The battle between Yi Xian and Blood God King lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The 8 demon kings waited anxiously, but they could not see the scene of the battle, which made them extremely shocked. They did not know what kind of technique Yi Xian used to be able to fight with Blood God King to such an intense extent. What should we do? Should we help Big Brother? Zhu Long King asked worriedly. Are you kidding? Didn't you see that the 5-colored peacock seriously injured us with one attack? We can't help at all in a battle of this level. Lionheart King refuted coldly. Alright, stop arguing. Although the 5-colored peacock's combat strength is terrifying, Big Brother is a demon king of the great heaven of the great heaven. He is definitely not Big Brother's opponent. We just have to wait patiently. King Qing Chiu reprimanded. Why do I feel that something is wrong? The 5-colored peacock is too strange. If Big Brother. King Zhongping wanted to say something, but he stopped, and there was a trace of fear in his eyes. Are you stupid? Even if the 5-colored peacock's combat strength is unparalleled, a great heaven is a great heaven after all. He is just an all-heaven golden immortal. How can he kill Big Brother? King Bailu said with a red face. Bang! Suddenly, as the 8 demon kings were discussing, a loud sound that could destroy mountains and rivers was heard. The demonic fog that covered the sky quickly dissipated, and the 8 demon kings fell silent, looking at the battlefield nervously. Hiss! Gasps came from the mouths of the 8 archfiends. Their faces became extremely pale, and their bodies couldn't help but tremble. This was because they had seen an extremely terrifying scene. This scene would be etched in their minds for the rest of their lives, and they would never forget it even in death. Chapter 410. In the void under the firmament. Yi Xian was dressed in black, covered by the Tongtian demonic light, and surrounded by the 5-colored divine light. A gust of demonic wind blew, causing his black hair to flutter in the wind. Lord Blood God was bathed in blood. There was a big hole in his chest, and his broken heart and bones could be seen clearly. He was being held in the air by Yi Xian by the neck. They couldn't believe it, and they didn't even dare to believe it. This scene was simply a fantasy for the 8 archfiends. How could a demon king of the first heaven of the Daluo realm be defeated by an all-heaven golden immortal? Even though his opponent was a 5-colored peacock and had great talent, he could not cross the natural chasm that was Daluo Jingxian and suppress Lord Blood God. The 8 demon kings felt as if they had fallen into a dream and could not wake up. However, the scene in front of them was too real, and it made them tremble. They knew that they were not mistaken. Puff! Puff! Lord Blood God spat out blood, and the demonic light around him was collapsing. He was being held by Yi Xian by the neck, and his cultivation was sealed. However, he looked at Yi Xian with an indescribable fear in his eyes. You are your dong. Unfortunately, before Lord Blood God could speak, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes, and a terrifying force burst out from his 5 fingers. It directly affected Lord Blood God's primordial spirit, causing him to scream miserably. Obviously, the inverse immortal formation was too famous. During the battle in the Celestial Court, Yi Xian's supreme reputation had been established, and the inverse immortal formation had spread throughout the 3 realms. If Lord Blood God still could not guess Yi Xian's identity, he would have to call himself an idiot. Within the demonic fog that covered the sky, Yi Xian displayed the immortal defying diagram, and even knocked him down to the great golden immortal realm. If it wasn't for the fact that Yi Xian was afraid of causing too much of a commotion, and didn't use his full strength, he probably wouldn't have been able to defeat Yi Xian in less than 2 hours. Blood God King was terrified. This was because the person in front of him was not a 5-colored peacock, but the infamous East Emperor. He wanted to tell his 8 brothers, but the pain in his primordial spirit made him unable to speak. From today onwards, I am the leader of the Tongtian Ridge. If you don't want to die, you'd better behave yourself. Yi Xian's eyes were sinister as he spoke to the 8 monster kings. The 8 monster kings kept quiet out of fear, and nodded their heads continuously. None of them dared to refute him. That was how the world worked. Whoever had the bigger fist was right. Now that even Blood God King had been defeated by Yi Xian, how could the 8 demon kings, who were mere golden immortals of all heaven, dare to oppose Yi Xian? Rumble! Yi Xian coldly smiled. When he took a step forward, he directly blasted open the belly of a mountain, and brought the Blood God King into the belly of the mountain. The demonic light that blotted out the sky covered the entrance of the cave. It was obvious that without Yi Xian's permission, anyone who dared to barge in would only die. What should we do? Torch Dragon King asked in a trembling voice. Clearly, he was frightened by Yi Xian. What else can we do? Big brother, Blood God King is dead for sure. Do you think we can save him? Lionheart King roared. A new emperor brings his own ministers. It seems that the Tongtian Ridge is going to be ruled by Kong. We'd better wait and see. Don't go against him, Qing Qiu King said with a pale face. I don't think we can do that. Let's run away, White Deer King said in a trembling voice. Run away? Are you crazy? The 5-colored peacock didn't kill us, because he wants us to work for him. If we really run away now, I'm afraid he'll hunt us down, Dapeng King retorted coldly. All right. I don't think the 5-colored peacock has any intention of harming us. It's just that the Tongtian Ridge has a new master. As long as we behave ourselves, he won't do anything to us. Qing Qiu King tried to calm himself down and said with certainty, pass down the order. Don't let the demons out of the Tongtian Ridge for the next few days. We'll wait for the 5-colored peacock to appear and see what he's going to do," Lionheart King said majestically. The so-called brotherhood was nothing to the 8 great demon kings. It was a mutually beneficial relationship. Since Blood God King was going to die, they wouldn't be stupid enough to go against Yi Xian for him. Moreover, after the 8 great demon kings calmed down, they all had some thoughts. Since Blood God King was going to die, Yi Xian would be the master of the Tongtian Ridge in the future. When Yi Xian appeared again, they would definitely express their loyalty. Perhaps Blood God King's death was a good thing, because Yi Xian could kill him, which meant that he was stronger than Blood God King. This would also indirectly increase the power of the Tongtian Ridge. The world is bustling for profit, and the world is bustling for profit. It didn't matter who was the master of the Tongtian Ridge. The most important thing was that the interests of the 8 great demon kings wouldn't be damaged. This was what they cared about the most. The 8 great demon kings dispersed and passed down the order for the demons to block the news of Blood God King's defeat. This also ushered in a rare period of peace in the Tongtian Ridge. In the belly of the mountain, Blood God King was stepped on by Yi Xian like a dead dog. A sinister and excited look flashed across Yi Xian's eyes. East Emperor, don't kill me." Being stepped on by Yi Xian didn't make Blood God King feel humiliated at all, because he knew how terrifying the person in front of him was. He couldn't afford to offend him at all. He fought the Jade Emperor in the 33rd layer of the Celestial Court, killed Devil Sweeping Emperor Zhenwu, and then went down to kill Immortal Yuding. Even though Guanyin of the South Sea and Guang Qingzi chased him for millions of miles, they still couldn't do anything to Yi Xian. Facing such a terrifying person, how could Blood God King have the courage to resist? "Don't kill you," Yi Xian sneered sinisterly. He looked at Blood God King with a teasing look and said, "Give me a reason not to kill you." East Emperor, I am a demon king at the 1st celestial level. I am willing to accept you as my master. I only beg you to spare my life." Blood God King begged humbly. His face was extremely red. While Blood God King hadn't seen Yi Xian before, he had always heard of Yi Xian's legends. Naturally, he had also heard of Yi Xian's ruthless methods. He really had no other choice but to accept Yi Xian as his master. Moreover, Blood God King was very confident. After all, he was a Grand Celestial. Yi Xian simply couldn't refuse the temptation of a Grand Celestial. "Accept me as your master?" Yi Xian murmured with a smile. However, his smile was extremely strange, as if he had heard a joke. What a pity, what a pity. In my eyes, you are the best food. Only by devouring your cultivation can I quickly reach the Grand Celestial level. Do you think I will let you go?" Yi Xian asked sinisterly. Devour my cultivation?" Hearing Yi Xian's words, Blood God King was stunned. Then great horror rose in his eyes. Tribulation Transcender Technique. Suddenly, Yi Xian let out a cruel roar. A terrifying black light spread out and instantly covered the Blood God King, causing him to let out a miserable howl that was so painful that he wished he was dead, obliterating one's body, shattering one's primordial spirit, and making it impossible for them to reincarnate for all eternity. Tribulation Transcender techniques were far too vicious, and the victim would suffer unimaginable pain and torture. Rumble. Terrifying Grand Celestial Demonic Light spread out. Yi Xian sat cross-legged and turned into a terrifying vortex. He violently absorbed Blood God King's cultivation, causing Blood God King's mournful howls to come from the belly of the mountain. Chapter 4:11. What did it mean to prove one's Tao through strength? As the name implied, when one's strength reached the extreme, even the great Tao of heaven and earth could not restrain him. He could break through the heavens and become independent of the three realms, becoming the saint of all saints. If the heavens and earth were destroyed, he would not be destroyed. If all living things died, he would not die. This was the essence of proving one's Tao through strength. Although the principle was simple, the process was extremely rugged. Even Tao ancestor Hongjun had only become a saint by severing 3 corpses. Perhaps only the great god Pangu, who created the heavens and earth, had walked the path of proving one's Tao through strength. It was a golden core, round and flawless. Although it was only the size of a grain of rice, it really existed in Yi Xian's sea of consciousness. Yi Xian did not know what this golden core was, but when he swallowed and refined Lord Blood God's cultivation, this golden core formed in his sea of consciousness. Although Yi Xian had not cultivated for a long time, he understood the situation of each realm of immortals very well. He had never heard of the golden core condensing in the sea of consciousness of an immortal who had achieved the Daluo Jingxian. The aura of the golden core was obscure. It rotated in the sea of consciousness, and an inexplicable and terrifying fluctuation was faintly discernible. It was as if this golden core was nurturing something extremely terrifying. Yi Xian had a feeling that the appearance of this golden core was a bad thing. It was as if a voice was telling him that this golden core might be the foundation for him to prove one's Tao through strength. Daluo Golden Core. Yes, Yi Xian gave this name to the golden core he had condensed, because it was something he had condensed when he was advancing towards the Daluo Jingxian. Yi Xian had a feeling of extreme sublimation. This was not only a change in his cultivation, but also a transformation in his spirit. He seemed to be isolated from the three realms, and there was an extraordinary aura surrounding his body and mind. This aura did not belong to the three realms. Although the aura of transcendence was faint, it was something that really existed in his body. Yi Xian was very sure that he was not an all-heaven golden immortal now. He had stepped into a mysterious realm, but this realm was not Daluo either. It was as if he was in between the two realms. He was also in the state of breaking through the cocoon and turning into a butterfly. Accumulation, brewing, and erupting all at once, turning the world upside down. After refining Blood God King's cultivation, Yi Xian knew what his situation was. When he had devoured enough energy, when he could cultivate his gold core to the large success stage, he would step into the golden immortal realm. However, his golden immortal realm was not something an ordinary Daluo Jingxian could compare to. As for how strong he was, Yi Xian did not dare to judge. 9 Revolutions Daluo Technique. Yi Xian gave this name to his current realm because he could feel that the golden elixir in his sea of consciousness was extremely illusory. If he wanted to cultivate it to the large success stage, he would need to devour a huge amount of cultivation. As the saying goes, once a golden core is swallowed into the stomach, one's fate will be in one's own hands, and not in the hands of the heavens. This is the initial step to attaining the Tao through strength. Yi Xian spat out a stream of turbid air, and a muffled sound came from the surrounding space. It was also at this moment that Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes, and a wisp of golden light quietly streaked across his eyes. Crack! Clenching his fists tightly, it was as if he had grabbed the space and caused ripples to appear in the void. This made Yi Xian happy, and a hint of excitement flashed across his eyes. Strength, extremely powerful strength. Yi Xian only felt that his body was filled with strength, as if when he punched out, even the heavens and earth would be shattered by his fist. Of course, Yi Xian was not so arrogant as to think that he could shatter the heavens and earth. This was just an illusion. It was just that Yi Xian had a feeling that if he could attain the Tao through strength, shattering the heavenly Tao would not be a problem. Blood God King's soul dissipated, and the entire belly of the mountain was extremely quiet. Yi Xian calmly got up and strolled towards the outside world. His path had just begun, and he wanted to let the Tongtian Ridge become his foundation, and then stir up the winds and clouds of the three realms. Boom! The belly of the mountain shattered, and he stepped out. When Yi Xian appeared in the air above the Tongtian Ridge, the 8 archfiends felt it, and they all went to greet Yi Xian. Greetings, King Kongli. The 8 archfiends bowed, and they did not mention a word about Blood God King. Clearly, they knew that Blood God King was dead, and mentioning him would only make them feel uncomfortable. King Kongli? Yi Xian frowned. This title was too vulgar, and he did not like it. Yi Xian looked at Luminous Star, and the bright North Star twinkled in the sky. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The celestial court was in the east, where the Jade Emperor sat. Yi Xian was in the north, which corresponded to the North Star. This made him casually say, "I don't like the title king." From now on, you can call me Northstar Great Sage." The 8 archfiends were shocked. They wanted to say something about Yi Xian's title, but they swallowed it back down. It was no wonder that the 8 archfiends were surprised. People who called themselves great sages were all looking for trouble. Because of the word great sage, it was disrespectful to the great sage, and it was bound to bring about trouble. Back in the day, the monkey had caused a ruckus in the celestial court. He called himself great sage, heaven's equal. And then he became sworn brothers with the archfiends of the lower worlds. They all had different titles, such as Great Sage who pacifies heaven and Great Sage who covers the seas. In the end, they all turned against each other and hid in the earth immortal realm. But the 8 archfiends did not say anything. Although they did not know Yi Xian well, they knew that Yi Xian was overbearing and ruthless. He was a man of his word, and they would not do something like that. "Greetings, Great Sage Beichen." The 8 archfiends bowed, and each of them was extremely respectful. Yi Xian was very satisfied with the 8 archfiends' humble attitude. He did not need the 8 archfiends to be loyal to him. He only needed them to be obedient. Of course, if they had any ulterior motives, Yi Xian would not mind killing them. Under the escort of the 8 archfiends, Yi Xian entered the 9 demon cave again. Obviously, he had become the owner of the Tongtian Ridge. Naturally, he had to ask about the Tongtian Ridge, whether big or small. Inside the 9 demon cave, Yi Xian sat at the head of the table, and the 8 archfiends stood on either side of him. The demons below him were as silent as cicadas in winter, and they did not even dare to breathe too loudly. Obviously, they were extremely respectful of Yi Xian. As the saying goes, nothing can be accomplished without rules. The rules of the Tongtian Ridge need to be changed. Yi Xian tapped on the table with his fingers, making tapping sounds. It was as if he was tapping on the hearts of the demons, and it also made them smile and nod continuously. Big Brother is right. As long as Big Brother instructs us, we will naturally obey. Torch Dragon King laughed ingratiatingly and hurriedly expressed his attitude. Clearly, he was the one who hooted the loudest previously, afraid that Yi Xian would seek revenge. Now he was indirectly expressing his goodwill to Yi Xian. "I will definitely obey Big Brother's instructions." Qing Qiu King bowed with a charming smile, giving off a seductive vibe. With the two of them taking the lead, the other archfiends also voiced out, expressing their loyalty. Instantly, the 9 demon cave became noisy. "First of all, I do not like such a dirty and messy environment. Tell the little demons below to clean up the Tongtian Ridge for me." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.